States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Please let the roll show that we are all present, Kelly. And moving on to the approval of the consent agenda. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at that?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Moving on to the approval of the agenda. Any additions or deletions?
Yeah, could I make a suggestion just on the order of the agenda items?
Yes.
I was hoping to move the planner position update to item I ahead of the zoning enforcement officer item.
Okay. So K in front of I. Okay. Anyone else have anything?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, moving on. Announcements and communications. Anyone have anything? Okay, moving on. Seeing none.
Riley
Go ahead.
Catherine, the Riley Catherine picnic is coming up in the park. I can't remember the date on that, but it's coming up in the next week or so.
Oh,
Their annual picnic in the park.
okay. Thank you, Lisa. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, let's move to the call to the public. This is where anyone can come up to the microphone and let us know anything about any non-agenda items. Okay, seeing none, let's move on to reports. DDA.
Good evening, everyone. I wanted to give you an update on ribbon cutting events. So on Monday, August 27th, there was a grand opening of the South Lyon Recreation Authority and Matt Katz facility. They have a new facility there on Griswold Road. It was well attended, and the Kensington Valley Chamber of Commerce was there, as well as a few members of our township board, including Sean O'Neill. And it was a great turnout. They're very excited about this new facility. There's many more opportunities for expansion within the facility. So I had an opportunity to talk to some key folks there that were interested in taking up some space there. Also, the next ribbon cutting event is scheduled for Thursday, September 13th, and this will be for Tech Corporation. As you know, they did their major expansion recently, and they would like to do a ribbon cutting and celebration event, and all township officials are invited to attend. And I'm sorry, that's at 9:30 in the morning. Also, I attended recently a Michigan Economic Development Association conference. This was their annual event. It was up in Frankenmuth on August 23rd and 24th. Key topics of the conference included the presentation of site selection and highlighted the priority factors that commercial and industrial developers use when they are making their decision on where to locate. What was exciting about this presentation is that the Michigan Economic Development Corporation was also there to share the 37 incentive programs that they offer for site selection. So we knew that there were a lot of programs available, but it was nice to get that information in depth. And also the MEDC had a session on speculative buildings. In the past, especially after the recession, it was very difficult for developers to get financing for spec buildings. And now we're seeing a big change in that. And an example here in the township is we currently have 3 speculative buildings under construction. 2 which are very large, so it's exciting news. MEDC, I've been contacted by the consultant that's been hired by the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, who will be assisting with a statewide primary industrial development site selection. This is focused on the 16 different sites throughout the state, of which Walbridge is one of them. And so I've received the intake data request, and I'll be working closely with folks in our community, including our utilities, to get all the information that they need to move forward. And then we will have a meeting here on site and a visit to the site on November 15th. I'm hoping it won't be cold that day. Also, the South Hill Road project is scheduled to start on Monday, September 10th. So we're excited to get that project moving forward. This is a project where the design was funded by Magna, RCOC, Lyon Township, and the DDA, with construction costs covered by MDOT through their Category A grant. 100% of the construction costs is covered by that grant. This is going to include a traffic light and then paving for South Hill south of Grand River. Also, the New Hudson Drain, we are continuing ongoing meetings. We recently had a meeting with the MEDC and also Oakland County to discuss potential funding options as we try to work through what's that going to cost and where we can get some additional funding. And also, the DDA is continuing a promotional campaign to promote Lyon Works, which is our Facebook page that we post all of our local job opportunities on. And so we'll be running 4 full-page ads in the Lyon Today magazine over the next year. So this is the second year that we've conducted this campaign, and we are seeing an increase in people hitting that Facebook page, and it allows us the opportunity to promote the jobs that are available. And also, just wanted to remind folks that Manufacturing Day is coming up on October 5th. This is a national, state, and county-wide program. A number of Lyon Township manufacturing companies are going to be participating in the event this year. And how it works is Oakland County will have a number of buses that'll be traveling throughout the county and taking students to the facilities so they can see firsthand what's going on in these manufacturing facilities. One of the things they say is this is not your grandfather's manufacturing facility. They're clean, they're exciting, new, and the effort is to try to promote skilled trades and engineering jobs. And then lastly, the MEDC and Michigan Works will be sponsoring a Michigan Career Day at the Suburban Collection on November 28th. You'll hear me talk about this over the next couple months because we're really trying to promote this as well. Reaching out to companies who want to participate and want to sponsor this event. Over 10,000 students are scheduled to participate in this. And again, it's just an effort to try to reach out and get kids involved in skilled trades and interest in those programs. And that would conclude my event, or my report.
Thank you, Tina. Any questions for Tina?
Just one. Sounds like you had a pretty busy month. Any update on the website from the
Yes, actually, I touched base with them today, and we had a delay just because I have not had time to work on that. But I was able to provide them with all the navigation that we needed, and now they'll start to populate that. So hopefully in a week or two, we'll have a mock-up of it so that we can start the process of review.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, moving on. Chief Van Tech.
Good evening.
Evening.
Brief report. You'll see Brian a little bit later. We're currently at 983 incidents for the year, and right now we're just waiting for one more quote for the exhaust removal system, and hopefully we'll have that within the next week or two. And my plan is to bring that proposal before you in the October meeting. Again, this was the FEMA grant award that we received for both stations, so there will be more to follow on that. That's my report.
You said 983 incidents
Yeah,
to date.
correct.
How are we from last year?
We're slightly up
We're up.
from last year, yeah. It seems to be a trend over the last years. We're not going down at all.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thanks, Chief. Lieutenant Venus?
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
The two SROs have been with us now for a couple of weeks. I think I told you last meeting that their first thing was to go to the state police for some training, which they did that, and everything went well. Last week, after they came back, we did active shooter training with the teachers for 2 days. We did it at one of the middle schools, both high schools, and then I think I wasn't there, I went Wednesday with them, but I think on Friday they were at Kent Lake.
Yep.
And ran everybody through. I never thought we'd be doing something like that in my career or in my time, never even thought about it, but it's a reality at time, and everybody went through the training, and I got positive feedback from Melissa that everybody enjoyed it and had a good time and learned some things, and a few wrestling matches with some of the teachers there and the wrestling coaches and stuff like that, but it was good training. We've had 2 football games already, one at East and one at South Lyon High. and Damon Dorkins got to meet quite a few of the parents and mingled with a lot of them at the high school, at South Lyon's football game. So his start there is pretty good. So hopefully we'll have a good school year and things will work out good. That's all I have, unless anybody has any questions.
Thanks, Lieutenant.
Yeah.
All right, Planning Commission. Patty, anything?
Yep. Okay, we had 2 meetings in the month of August. The first one was Monday, August 13th. We had quite a few public hearings, all regarding exotic, and then we had one DINA. We had AP 1837, exotic automotion and supply rezoning. That was approved by the Planning Commission up to the Township Board. We did AP 1838, we had the DINA investment special land use, which I actually had to be recused from that because my husband works for that person. So I did that, but the application was denied, or the special land use. We had AP 18-40B, exotic automotion and supply special land use, which was approved. And we also considered AP 18-40A, exotic automotion supply site plan review. All were moved up to the Township Board, which are on our agenda tonight. Under old business, we had AP 17-57 Lyon Station, formerly Griswold Road, preliminary review, and that is also on our agenda tonight, and that was approved and recommended to the board. And then we had AP 1839 Project Wolverine site plan review that had been tabled from the meeting before, but that was also approved. Our second meeting was just Monday, August 27th. Fairly short meeting. We had only 2 agenda items under new business. Actually, both were tabled for specific reasons. We had AP 1841, the Fraser Funeral Home and Cremation Site Plan Review, which is just north of our property on Pontiac Trail, the property that we're selling tonight on our agenda. Our planner felt that there was still some major things that needed to be adjusted or added, and he recommended to table it. So the township, or the Planning Commission did. Then our second agenda item was AP 1844 Pratt and Miller Parking Lot Expansion Site Plan Review. That was also recommended to be tabled by our engineer. Leslie had some concerns about drainage and some other things. So that also was tabled, and that concluded both of our agendas, or both of our planning commissions.
Thank you. ZBA?
We had a meeting on August 20th, and there were 2 items from Prime Site Media. One was removed by the applicant, and the other variance was denied, and that was it.
Okay. Park Advisory Board. Anything going on there?
Yes, we worked on our, actually it's here on the meeting today for, I'm sorry, struggling. We have an item for our adoption of the Park and Rec Advisory Board bylaws. So that's what we worked on mostly, and had a few other discussions, and it was a good meeting, good productive meeting, so.
Very good. Okay, moving on. Bob, DPW?
Yep, thank you, John. We have installed the 3 lights on the ring road. One is still waiting to come in. Hopefully this coming week it should be done. The sidewalk was poured and it was used today. I was out there at about 8:15 to watch the kids walk down it at Rice Street on the way to Dolson Elementary. We have been working very closely, and Melanie's just been doing an outstanding job on the water meters. We've educating ourselves and putting it into our format that we can not only read but interpret and share with our residents their water usage, which has been very good. And we also have an Eagle Scout project going on in one of the local cemeteries that Michelle and I have worked with the young man. So
11.
that and a whole bunch of other things, but that's the
Okay.
Good stuff.
thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
And I do want to let the board know that the The sewer bills and the water bills have went out today. Actually, this weekend.
Yep.
We've been
Got all kinds of
inundated
calls.
with calls. And it's because both of them are on one bill. And they're used to getting a sewer bill, and now the water's attached to the sewer bill, and they're freaking out a little bit, just so everyone knows. We're getting a lot of calls about that.
Yep.
But they're understanding, they're being explained to, and everyone's understanding, and it's actually,
Growing pains.
Combination of both,
yeah, it's actually pretty good.
yeah.
Okay, moving on, our next agenda item is a public hearing. Before we get into the public hearing, it is consider establishing an industrial development district, IDD, number 12. And I'd like for, Tina, do you want to explain that a little bit before we go into the public hearing on that?
Sure.
So, in order to establish an industrial development district, PA 198 of 1972 requires that a public hearing take place. So on August 8th, a notification was published in the South Lyon Herald that listed the 19 properties located on Grand River, just north of Haas, east of South Hill and west of Old Plank. There are 19 parcels that's currently, I believe, zoned residential. And in order to address having an industrial development district identified, the public is made aware. In addition, all of the taxing authorities received a certified letter notifying of this public hearing this evening, as well as property owners within 300 feet of the property.
Okay.
Okay.
Does everyone kind of understand that? Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. It is 7:17, and it's open for anyone that'd like to stand up to the microphone and talk about this, this IDD. Okay. Seeing none, I'd like to close the public hearing at 7:17. All right, moving on to unfinished business. This is Artesian of Pioneer Water discussion, and he is not here, but I think Bob's got some updates for us, and
Yep. Anybody who's driven by Griswold will see that the tower is there, and you can see it from a long way away already. We get a lot of response from not only residents in the township, but South Lyon also. And the tower right now sits at almost 150 feet. And starting in about a week, the tank is going to start being put on top. That's going to hold 1 million gallons of water. And 1 gallon of water weighs 8.34 pounds. You can imagine we're looking at well over 8 million pounds of weight at the top of that tower, squeezing the water down and pushing it out through our distribution system. And we're very excited about it because it's going to give us high PSI, or pounds per square inch of pressure, throughout our community. It's a really good thing. Over at the Woodwind plant, construction is well underway. 2 tanks are well on the way to be completed that are the clear water tanks, and the footings have been poured for the building, and things are looking, on any given day, there's somewhere between 15 and 20 employees working hard over there, so it's fun to go over and watch them work. So we're excited, and we've waited and waited and waited for this moment, and it's happening, and I like to share it with our community because in the not-too-distant future, we're going to have awesome iron-free water to deliver to all of our residents that we won't have to worry about flushing hydrants on a regular basis. So, okay? Thank you.
yeah, I know, do you have any questions, does this board have any questions about the progress of the water system? I mean, have you, I know there was a few questions earlier, and I'd like to know them, because if you have questions, you know, we can get them answered.
Just the status of the softening component, I think that's the main thing that's kind of been hanging out.
And I think the softening is just another factor of the system. I mean, we've been working on that every single day. The DEQ, we have to distribute the water somewhere, and that's the big issue. If we could get an ionized plant, we could probably get this thing okayed pretty quick. But since it's a nanofilter plant, there's a lot of excess water that has to be distributed. And that's our big hangup. The DEQ wants to know where that water is going to go. They won't let us service discharge it. They won't let us direct inject it. And there's just we've still got some work to do. But I can tell you that it's being worked on every single day.
I'll tell you though, the iron removal system is going to be huge. We're going to be putting out some very, very clear iron-free water, which is a huge first step for this community. So,
But it also removes manganese, and the manganese is also a coloring factor of the water, and our current system does not. So it will remove all that. And I think if I believe the filters are going to go in the building in the second week of September.
oh yeah,
They're talking about setting the filters. So they'll set the filters and they'll build the walls around it. There's 4 filters going into Woodwind. Woodwind will also give us 300,000 gallons of deliverable water, untreated and treated. The untreated clear well will distribute it into the treatment plant, and it'll put it into the 150,000 waiting to be delivered, also along with the 1 million gallon new tower, and the 2 existing towers that we have are going to put us like really in good shape.
1,750,000 gallons at all times.
And right now, we have the ability to treat about 2 million gallons a day. We'll be treating 5.5 million on the first treatment plant. So it's going to be an amazing upgrade, and I think probably somewhere near maybe the end of October, possibly into November, we should be turning it, pretty close to turning it on. I mean, we're getting very, very close.
The other question I had, well, status of softening, which I know has been
That's a tough one.
a long road, but we're making progress at least on iron filtration, which is great. Was the second tower, because
We have to work
weren't
on that.
all- Right, we weren't all necessarily certain we wanted to build the second tower right now, and I don't know when do you want to have that discussion again.
We need to have that discussion sooner than later. And the reason we need to have that is if we decide to build that, we would like to move them right from this tower to the next tower.
The
So
workers-
location is important.
The workers from this tower to the next tower,
Right.
just to get
We
rid of
keep
them.
them, they are from Oklahoma. They come for 5 weeks, they work on the tower for 5 weeks, and then they go home for a week. And then
I mean, are
they're
we-
back for 5 weeks.
Are we permitted on the second location yet?
We have to, no,
don't
we
have
have
a
to
location.
get the location.
Right, so I guess to get a location to get permitted.
We would get that fairly quickly. We have to have a
Just 'cause of the
location
tower,
first.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know we're still working on that and trying to work on possibly some agreements with other entities. Okay.
The tower right now, the next phase of this tower with this pan going on top is going to cause a little bit of downtime. That takes 3 weeks. When they put the pan on top of the structure, it takes 3 weeks for it to cure. So there'll be no action for 3 weeks once that pan goes in. And then you'll see the tank. The tank will start being assembled on top.
Sounds good.
I'm going to have Ed start coming to these meetings with some presentations, showing you pictures, showing you things that have been accomplished. I think that's important right now, and start showing you some of the progress. I mean, if you go to the water treatment plant, it's insane.
Yeah.
A lot going on there.
I mean, I think it would be good to get those out on,
On our new monitors.
Yeah, I know. That's the next
it would
thing.
be good to get that out on Facebook if we could too, just some information, occasionally, not necessarily every day. There's nothing to report every day, but just.
Tina, can you put that in your schedule?
We have been on occasion, especially on Facebook. We don't share a whole lot of photographs of the water treatment plant, just for security.
Sure.
But I have been taking pictures since day one, so hopefully we can put together some type of a nice video that actually will show the progression as the
Right.
tower grew over the weeks.
Yeah.
Since they started construction, I think in early June
Yes.
for that, so. But yes.
Things are moving very, very well. And I'd like to take everyone out there, actually. I'd like to, 3 at a time, we go out there and take a look at it. When you guys got time, please let me know. Any other questions? Okay, moving on to unfinished business second. Here we get consideration of adoption of ordinance for charter Township of Lyon to amend zoning, Article 3, Section 302 to include new definitions, Article 12, Section 1214 to add new paragraphs, Article 19, Section 19.02, to add new paragraphs regarding wireless communication facilities in the public right-of-way. Text Amendment AP 1828, Ordinance Number 218. Don't make me do that again. Well, this is a second reading, I believe.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll move the adoption of ordinance 200-18.
I will support. I have actually two questions on it. To confirm, and I really appreciate this amendment because this has been going through the state legislature for a while. So just to confirm, it sounds like the maximum height for a wireless facility within the right-of-way would be 45 feet.
Correct.
The only thing, is there any provision, whether it's in this or within the original ordinance, about removal of such facilities if they expire, so to speak, or if the company goes out of business? I think we have removal for the general cell phone towers that are 100 feet in the air.
No, this amendment was just brought before you just to try to lock into that maximum
Okay.
height. At this point, the statute has not yet been adopted, so I'm
Right.
not sure how it's all gonna play out, and we'll do the final amendments and a lot of amendments to the wireless once
Okay.
that is adopted.
All right.
You good there, Chris?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion and support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, moving on to new business. Consideration to approve local governmental resolution for resort liquor license, Teresita Mexican Grill.
Okay.
Tina?
Rudy Deanda Sanchez, owner of the Teresita Mexican Grill, located at 56310 Grand River, Lyon Township, is requesting support of the Township Board for his application to the Michigan Liquor Control Commission for a Class C resort license. The issuance of a resort license does not apply to the local government quota and is the sole decision of the Michigan Liquor Control Commission to determine if the application is eligible. Approval by a local government unit resolution would acknowledge that if the resort license is approved by the state Michigan Liquor Control, the local government unit supports that decision. Approval of the resolution and support of the application does not guarantee a resort license will be issued by the state. Mr. Sanchez has requested a Class C liquor license from the township at a regular meeting held on April 6, 2015, but was denied at that time because the township was not willing to give away its last license and felt that the last license could be leverage point for any new incoming businesses that were investing in owning or constructing a new building. In follow-up to the decision made by the Township Board, I advised Mr. Sanchez to contact the license owners that currently had their licenses held in escrow with the Michigan Liquor Control. He reached out to a number of licensees in 2015 and again in 2016, but was not able to identify a license for sale. Most recently, he secured a list of contacts from the Michigan Liquor Control for escrow licenses held in Oakland County. These licenses, he sent out a total of 74 letters inquiring by certified mail. Of the letters mailed out, 51 or 64% of those letters were returned undeliverable. The list from the Michigan Liquor Control provides the address where the license had been issued, which in most cases was the restaurant establishment that is now closed. So any effort to mail any type of inquiry ended up going to any type of restaurant that was closed, so those were returned undeliverable. This would explain why there were so many undeliverable requests. Of the 23 letters that were delivered, 8 or 35% responded that they were not available for sale, and 15 or 65% did not respond to the inquiry. After exhausting his efforts in trying to secure an escrow license, Mr. Sanchez then reached out to the Michigan Liquor Control to ask if there were any other options for him. He was advised to apply for a resort license. It was explained that although Lyon Township may not be known or designated as a resort community or a tourist community, the Michigan Liquor Control views the entire state of Michigan as a resort due to the state's tourism industry. The applicant is responsible for ensuring that they meet the requirements of the application and for providing any documents or arguments that would assist the Michigan Liquor Control in their decision to grant a resort license. And I provided in the packet some detailed information from the liquor control about what the applicant would need to provide in order to be eligible. The process of obtaining a liquor license, the purpose for obtaining an on-premise resort license is similar to that described in the fact sheet for the quota license of the same classification. A potential applicant interested in a Class C resort license would also review the Class C fact sheet. It should be noted, however, that due to the tremendous interest in the number of resort licenses, the Commission attempts to grant licenses only to the most meritorious applicants. Unsuccessful applicants may request that the Commission carry over the application from 1 year to the next. It is recommended then for the Township Board to approve the resolution to support Teresita's Mexican Grill's application to the Michigan Liquor Control for a non-quota Class C resort license. In your
Okay, so
packet-
basically, you're just trying, he needs to have the board support him to go get the resort license? Is that basically what you're saying?
That's true. And the two key things here is that this does not affect our quota system, and the final decision is not ours. It lies with the Michigan Liquor Control.
So why wouldn't we do that? I think that's
Right.
a no-brainer. I mean, if we could help him in support of this board, I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah.
That's just me.
If you're ready, I'll make a motion.
Anybody have anything they want to talk about? Okay. Go ahead, John, make a motion.
I would move to adopt a resolution with the Michigan Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs Liquor Control Commission for Teresita Mexican Grill Incorporated with Rodolfo Sanchez as the owner to apply for a resort license. We fully support it.
I will second.
All right, we have a motion and a support. Any other follow-up questions? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Moving on. Lyon Station, formerly Griswold Road Plan Development, preliminary review. Patrick, just take this over.
Thank you. The case before you this evening is for the Lyon Station Plan Development. It's a 37-unit, single-family detached home development on 28.97 acres of land located on the east side of Griswold Road between 8 and 9 Mile Roads. As you know, the plan development process has 3 stages: conceptual, preliminary, and final, where both the Planning Commission and the Township Board review the plans at those stages. At the conceptual review back in January and February for the Planning Commission and the Board, both bodies review those plans, and at conceptual review, there are no votes on the plans, so there's just comments and feedback. And at both bodies at conceptual review commented that the side yard setbacks at that time were too narrow. The side yard setbacks proposed at that time were 7.5 feet on each side for a separation distance of 15 feet between the homes. At the next stage, at preliminary review, the applicant submitted the plans, and on July 9th of 2018, the Planning Commission held a public hearing on the plans. The Planning Commission at that time tabled action on the plans, mainly over concerns regarding the narrow lot widths and the narrow side yard setbacks. The revised plans were prepared on July 18th. That included wider lots and side yard setbacks. And at the August 13th meeting, the Planning Commission reviewed the revised plans and unanimously recommended approval of the preliminary PD plans subject to several conditions. And in a little bit, we'll get into the wider side yard setbacks. Essentially, what's proposed is 10 feet side yard setbacks on every side yard, which makes a minimum separation distance of 20 feet. Specifically, the parcel of land where the development is proposed is a triangularly shaped parcel, and it's the only industrial zone parcel of land south of 9 Mile Road. It's a challenging parcel to develop for residential purposes based on the following 4 reasons. First, the railroad tracks exist along the northern boundary, dictating the need for a larger setback from the north property line than might otherwise be necessary. Second, there's a regulated wetland that bisects the property from east to west, and it separates the usable upland in 2. Third, the property is directly north of the estates at Hutsfield, which is a proposed high-density, single-family detached development of 214 units. And ideally, a transition in density would be allowed so as to achieve the density permitted by the future land use map. And finally, fourth, there's an electric transmission line on the property's east boundary line. The development proposes the 37 units be concentrated on the southern side of the site, which is located south of the wetlands and the wooded area. The northern portion of the site is proposed to remain as open space. There are 14.11 acres of open space in the development, of which almost 12 acres is upland open space. The upland open space comes out to 41.39% of the site. Most of the open space creates a buffer between the lots and the CSX railroad that runs northwest through the site. The minimum lot size in the development is 7,447 square feet, with each lot measuring 63 feet in width or greater. The average lot size, though, is higher. The average lot size is 8,620 square feet, and the average lot width in the development is almost 70 feet wide. Since the lot sizes were reviewed at the public hearing by the Planning Commission at preliminary review, the applicant widened the lots, widened the side yard setbacks based on the Planning Commission's comment. And regarding facilities, the lots will be served by public water and sanitary sewer. The zoning of the subject property is I-1 light industrial. It makes it a difficult piece to have a parallel plan for, because a parallel plan defined by the ordinance is based on the underlying zoning. With an underlying zoning of industrial, it's impossible to do a parallel plan. The future land use map designates the property as single-family residential B, which allows for up to 2 units per acre. With the 37 units proposed on the 19.32 net acres being exclusive of wetlands, easements, detention areas, and proposed rights-of-way, the proposed density is 1.92 units per acre based on that method of calculation. So based on the method of calculating the number of units per net acre, subtracting out again the wetlands, detention areas, as well as the proposed rights-of-way, the proposed development meets the density calculations recommended in the master plan. To be eligible for a planned development, there are several eligibility criteria that must be met. There are 8 criteria in section 7.02 of the zoning ordinance. And I'll go through these one by one just to cover that the site is eligible. The first is the site has to have a recognizable benefit. The development has to propose recognizable benefits that exceed ordinance standards or otherwise achieve the standards of the plan development regulations. There are 3 recognizable benefits cited. The first is a provision of a generous setback along Griswold Road to protect the rural viewshed, which is about 80 feet from Lot 1 and much larger for other lots. The second is the provision of more open space than is required. At least 20% is required in a PD, and there's 41.39% proposed. And the third is the planting of 300 deciduous trees sized between 12 inches and 24 inches tall in the open space area north of the wetland. The intent there is to create a woodland on that north side of the site. Additionally, at the August 13th Planning Commission meeting, the applicant offered a contribution to the township in the amount of $10,000 for 11 Mile Park. The voluntary contribution by the applicant would also be considered a recognizable benefit. The second criteria for the eligibility of a PD is the minimum lot size. The gross area of the site is 28.97 acres, and the minimum lot size for a PD is 40 acres. There was a waiver from the 40-acre minimum requirement granted by the Township Board on September 5th, 2017, so this criteria is met based on that waiver. The third criteria is the use of public services. As we previously noted, the site will have proposed public water and sanitary services. With respect to the roads, there was a traffic impact assessment completed on October 6th of 2017. Some of the highlights of that traffic impact assessment are first, that all approaches and movements at the proposed site access point to Griswold Road will operate acceptably at level service C or better during both peak periods. Another finding was that a right turn taper is warranted at the proposed site access drive to Griswold Road, which is shown on the plans, and a left turn treatment was not required according to the traffic impact assessment. Another is that a signalized control is recommended and warranted at the study intersections of 8 Mile Road and Griswold Road, as well as 9 Mile Road and Griswold Road to improve existing traffic operations. It's worth noting that this Estates at Hutsfield proposes to fund the signal at 8 Mile Road and Griswold Road. A funding source for a signal at 9 Mile Road and Griswold Road has not yet been identified. And finally, another finding of the impact assessment is that under future conditions with a proposed development, all approaches and movements at the study intersections of Griswold Road with 8 Mile Road and 9 Mile Road will operate acceptably at a level of service D or better during both peak periods if the recommended signalization is installed. So again, there will be something going in at 8 Mile and Griswold, but 9 Mile and Griswold, I'm not aware of any plans yet. The fourth eligibility criteria is the compatibility with the master plan. As we previously noted, the net density of Lyon Station is 1.92 units per acre, which is slightly less than the 2 units per acre recommended in the master plan for single-family residential B. So that standard is met in terms of the master plan density. The fifth item is the economic impact for the eligibility criteria. According to the applicant, the sales price of the homes in Lyon Station will range between $325,000 to $360,000. Although we don't yet have a complete fiscal impact and revenue statement, the sales prices in that range do not typically have a negative impact on surrounding properties. And based on our general calculations of tax revenues and permit fees, the fiscal impact to the township and the school district appear to be positive. We will be working with the applicant as well as many other PD applicants to have more detailed fiscal impact and revenue statements. There's a few items that we want to look at in terms of the fiscal impact and revenue model to give a little bit more of an accurate picture there. So we'll be working with several applicants to refine some of those. But overall, based on our experience with homes of this price range, the impact appears to be positive. The sixth eligibility criteria is the usable open space. As we previously noted, the zoning ordinance requires 20% of the gross area of the site to be open space, and the applicant proposes 41.39% of the site, the vast majority of which is upland open space. The seventh eligibility criteria is the preservation of natural features. The development achieves that goal in many ways. The first is that it keeps the wetland and the wooded area in and around the wetland intact. There are 3 landmark trees and 23 regulated trees proposed for removal, which require 75 replacement trees. And those 75 replacement trees are shown on the plan. And finally, the applicant proposes to plant 300 deciduous trees in the north part of the site with the intent of creating a woodland. And finally, the eighth eligibility criteria is unified control of the site, which the applicant has demonstrated in the application materials. The next item that we want to address is the setbacks. On page 6 of our review letter, there's a table there that shows the required setbacks in a PD as well as what's proposed by the applicant. Both the front and side yard setbacks are less than what's required by the zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance requires a 40-foot setback for a PD. What's proposed is 25 feet, so there's a deficiency of 15 feet. There have been other cases where a 25-foot setback has been approved for developments, and 25 feet is a sufficient depth for parking one car in the driveway. So if the garage is out front, somebody wants to park in the driveway, you can get one car on each side of it, but you won't be able to park 2 without parking over the sidewalk. But there is sufficient room to park one car in that driveway for that depth. For the side yard setback, the minimum is 15 feet in a PD. The applicant proposes a 10-foot minimum setback, and that's a deficiency of 5 feet. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the 10-foot setback as it would allow a separation distance of 20 feet between the units. With the setbacks along the perimeter that are not adjacent to the road, the only item that requires correction for that 40-foot minimum is that the back corner of Lot 5 needs to be adjusted in order to meet that 40-foot setback. It's a fairly minor part of the corner, so that can easily be adjusted without having to change the layout of the development. A couple of last few things here on page 7 of our review. There's a 10-foot wide asphalt path proposed along Griswold Road. There's a 5-foot wide concrete walkway proposed between lots 5 and 6 that will connect to the estates at Hutsfield to the south, so those developments will be connected through that sidewalk. And there are also 5-foot sidewalks within the interior of the development. The landscaping plan is included in the site plan materials, and the standards of the landscaping in the zoning ordinance have been met. And then finally, at the bottom of page 7, we have a few miscellaneous recommendations. First, that the development entryway signage must be addressed, showing location, dimensions, height, and method of illumination. Although this can be addressed at final PD review, we recommend including these details as soon as possible. Next, we recommend that the elevation renderings of the homes be submitted for review. And finally, we defer to the fire department and Oakland County regarding the road names. For example, Lyon Crossing is an existing development in Lyon Township, so the proposed road name of Lyon Crossing Drive may need to be changed. But that's more of an administrative item that we'd like to have worked out before final review. Finally, on page 8 of our letter, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the preliminary plans, and it did so unanimously. The revised plans were approved with conditions by the Planning Commission at its August 13th meeting, based on the findings that there were many recognizable benefits, the density is within the limits recommended by the master plan, and the proposed side yard setbacks were increased to 10 feet to address concerns previously raised by the Planning Commission and the Township Board. The conditions of preliminary PD approval recommended by the Planning Commission are as follows, and there are 7 of them. First, the fiscal impact and revenue statement must be provided prior to final PD review. Second, the development entryway signage must be addressed prior to final PD review, showing location, dimensions, height, and method of illumination. Third, elevation renderings for the proposed homes must be provided prior to final PD review, which must conform to all applicable zoning requirements. Fourth, that the fire department in Oakland County review and approve the road names in Lyon Station. Fifth, the required 40-foot setback must be shown in the back corner of Lot 5. Sixth, the conditions of the CES letter dated August 13th, 2018 must be met. And finally, seventh, that the voluntary contribution from Mr. Elko in the amount of $10,000 to Lyon Township for 11 Mile Park be accepted as one of the recognizable benefits previously described. That concludes our report, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Patrick.
Patrick, don't we also have a depot, and doesn't the city also have a depot street? I think there's 2 depots. Okay,
Yeah, so
just
that'll
you
be
know.
another one to
Okay.
look at.
Any other questions for Patrick at this time?
I have one.
Go ahead.
The review letter, Patrick referenced a traffic study that was done back 2 years ago. It was, let me go back, I think it was page 4. References a level of service, says the traffic volume data were calculated or collected on September 21st of 16 prior to signalization of the intersection. I mean, is it worth updating that? Because, I mean, just to have a handle, I mean, it's not going to be A, but it may not be year F. I don't know.
I'll take a quick look in the ordinance. I think that data is good for 3 years, but I'll look at the ordinance here really quick to see how long that lasts for.
Right, and I mean, I would agree that 3 years would be fine if nothing else changed, but the fact that and that's not gonna hurt his case, it's gonna help his case. But I had a question about that and didn't know if you thought it needed to be addressed, but you can look into it.
Yeah, I think it's 3 years, but I'll have an answer here in a minute.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I had one comment on the letter. Under the recognizable benefits, for reference, number 1A, the provision of a generous setback for a rural view shed. In the PD ordinance, it's 200 to 300 feet. The 80 feet would not qualify, and it actually is barely meeting the minimum of 70, I believe you said 70 or 75 feet. So that's not a recognizable benefit.
Okay. could probably get that question asked too from the applicant once he comes up. Anything else for Patrick at this time? Okay, Leslie, do you have anything to add?
No, Patrick referenced my letter, so I have nothing significant.
Okay. I'm gonna stand up and,
Evening once again. Rick Elko, 1042 North Milford Road, Milford, Michigan, 48381, representing Griswold 9 LLC and Echelon Homes.
Question.
Did you hit the button on top of the?
There you go.
Oh, yeah, you're good.
As Sean has pointed out, we've been kind of talking about this property since 16. It's been back and forth of several different creations. Started off at first with a rezoned R0.3. The Planning Commission and Board had recommended to come back with a plan development. We have came back with a plan development with a conceptual plan for this site. We met in committee after that plan was presented. Came up with, I think, is a very, very great use for this site here. As Patrick pointed out, there are some serious constraints on this site that are a challenge to develop around. You've got the railroad here. You've got a regulated wetland here. You've got high tension lines here, and you've got a mobile home park here. So this is not a estates type development. We've worked with the Planning Commission. We worked with kind of a steering committee of a couple board members also, and came forward with a plan which addressed quite a few concerns in regards to the overall layout. The first one was called pins. So it had the bowling alley shape to it. We modified that, made it more of a circular type development. The other concern was the distance to the railroad tracks. We pulled it back from the railroad tracks. We've left this is dedicated open space here, where we'll be planting ceilings for a long-term for reforestation of that piece there. We've also increased the lot size.
He can't hear you at all.
Okay, sorry about
Okay.
that. We've also increased the lot size through several different iterations of the Planning Commission, and also met the requirements of, or the recommendations for side yard setbacks. So, all in all, I think this project is gone through the process, been very, very well vetted out, and we've came to what I believe is a very good project here. I do have elevations tonight to present also. We also presented those at the Planning Commission level. So if you'd like to see the elevations, I can roll through those. There's our Boston, that's a 2,800 square footer. That will be the largest house built in the development. Some color renderings. Boston. So most of them will have a brick or stone belt All of them will have a brick or stone belt on the front. There will be front entry with a 60-foot wide lot. We'll have different roof pitches here on the front that break that gable. So these particular houses reflected the, what I would call the design characteristics of the more efficient stacking of living space over the garage. Our intention when we first started, I'm not used to talking in the microphone. The intention of this was to be a more of an affordable type product in the township to more fit the area that the development is located in. So, you know, that's where we are on this one. So when we started, that's where we started the process at. With much input and consideration and a couple different iterations of the development here. This is what we've come out of the planning commission. This is what we've come out of the planning commission with a unanimous recommendation for. You see, there is a connection here. There is the connection to Hutsfield. Our lots are larger than Hutsfield with larger setbacks, providing a transition to the neighboring properties.
Okay. All right, so I'd like to open this up for some questions. Anyone want to start? Chris, you want to start? You want to start?
I was just gonna say, you showed a few plans, but will you stagger them so you're not all the same house
Yeah.
right next to each other?
Yeah. What we do is we operate under, it's called a look-alike triangle. Basically, if you have a plan here, you can't have it here and here. Or, you know, if you have one here, you can't have it here, here, or right directly across the street.
Okay.
So it does give varying in streetscape.
Are you planning on hanging on to this one and developing this one yourself?
Yes, at this point we are.
Go ahead, anyone got questions? Go ahead, open them up. Ask.
You know, I guess the one thing that we talked about a couple of things. One was trying to get space between buildings. The other was trying to establish a density, which is what we're always tasked with doing in a PD. And in this case, because it's zoned industrial, and that's not what you plan to do, it makes it a little tough. So I guess I had a question. So you, according to the review and to some quick math, you're at 1.92 units per acre.
Correct.
The range in the master plan, which is, you know, unlike an ordinance, which gives you a prescribed lot area and setbacks, it gives you a range. That range is 1.25 to 2 units per acre. And so you're very, very close to the top end of 2, which would have yielded 38 and a half homes, call it 39. You're at 36.99, call it 37. If I apply 1.25, it's 24 units, which is at the low end. So I guess when I try to balance your request along with your recognizable community benefit, I'm trying to decide where in the range this should fall. I mean, if you go right down the middle, it's 31.31 units, so 31 units. So 6 fewer than you're asking for, 7 more than the bare minimum, you know. And on my mind, you know, Chris pointed out the 80-foot setback on lot 1. You know, I don't ever want to downplay a contribution to any of the things that we're working on, whether it's public safety or pathways or parks, because every little bit counts. But, so I appreciate all contributions, but that's another component in this. You know, so if you're getting more, there's an expectation that, you know, so this is a negotiation, you know, and so for us to sit here and just nod our head that's not what I'm going to do, and nor would anyone. So I'm just giving you some feedback. So I'm just kind of laying the numbers out here. So you're asking for almost the high end. We're quite a bit of ways from the low end of this range. And so I'm trying to decide if what you're offering is a community benefit beyond just the residents of your community. And I think trying to reforest the open area is a fantastic plan. And I think that at least on the triangle to the north of you, it will benefit more than just your neighbors. None of the people in your neighborhood will even see that area. So I consider that to be a benefit. So I just, you know, want to kind of lay some of that out there, because this is preliminary and we're kind of trying to, you know, sort our way through this. So that's what I'm looking at. And, you know, I think this plan is a better plan than the one we saw at first. I'm still trying to figure out how the math works, because it seems like you're providing more open space and you're providing bigger lots that have more setbacks, but with the same number of units. I don't know. I don't know what you did. I think you took some roadway out of it, but
From the original plan?
the one you showed a
Yeah,
second ago, you I believe had 37 lots in that configuration.
Correct.
So but you went far up into the, well, it's north on the screen, but it's east out
Correct.
in the field. And I'm just trying to figure out how, and we had an issue with setbacks. We were at 7.5, or you were at 7.5, and now you're at 10. So we put more space between the same number of lots, and somehow we're coming up with, I'm just trying to wrap my head around it, more open space.
So this was a more efficient design than the last one we had. And the
Okay.
other thing is, the first time we designed this road swung into here, more toward the west. So, the answer to your question is we did put in less road on this particular plan than we had on original. This one does have more road on it than we first came to the planning commission on. And also, when we first came to the planning commission, our triple net density was lower because we had less road than this one. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, when we came back with a little more road, it upped our number a little bit. Now, if you look at, bear with me just 1 second, please. If you look at us in comparison to Hutsfield, you know, they're almost 4 units to the acre. So in a transition zoning, I believe this is a proper use of land. So if you look at, you know, the lot lines here, you'll see, you know, those 50 or 55 foot wide lots. Both.
I don't remember.
So, you know, if you look, I'm a lot and a quarter for their one, or a lot, you know, so
Yeah. No, I understand.
looking at it as a whole comprehensive plan, and we put a lot of time into this plan with the planning commission, with the steering committee, and, you know, there was never, I understand your concern with density, there was never a concern with density because we met the requirements, and this is a very challenging piece that the township, in my opinion, needs to deal with.
Right. And so you may not have a density, so I might not be driving too fast. The speed limit might just be too low. So you may not be too dense per the future land use plan, but your recognizable community benefits may just not be getting it yet. So you're in that range, but we're in a spot now where it doesn't say X number of units per acre, like a parallel plan with a specific zoning district would. So we're dealing with a range. So to deal with the high end of the range, taking into consideration this is a challenging parcel, we're still trying to figure out where the recognizable community benefits need to fall to make it equitable. And that's what I'm saying. I don't have a magic idea or thought or, you know, number in my head. I'm not sure that I'm I'm quite at that point yet, though I recognize you've made improvements. And I'll rest for the moment.
You know, some of these lots that you have in here, Rick, like this lot 37, that to me is just a crazy lot. It's the one in the triangle at the front there. The one to the right there. Yeah, that one right there. That.
Because now we're talking across the.
It's just I don't even. It doesn't even seem like a lot somebody would want to buy. To get some more room in this project, I mean, are you willing to knock some of these houses out of here?
There's a critical mass that you need to have a development be capable of supporting itself from a marketing standpoint. The reason we came in with 37 is it's kind of what we started with right at conceptual. I mean, we've been consistent at 37 throughout. It gives me enough units to, adequately market this, put the dollars I need to into the subdivision. You start dropping below that, it starts to become, is it worth doing or not? When we first started looking at this, I think in the rezone, we were looking around 42 to 45 was our goal. Okay, we shifted back to 37, and really haven't in the planning commission process. I can honestly say we didn't get any pushback on once we came with a revised plan on the number of units or the layout. It was pretty, it was actually very positive.
All right, well, anyone got any more questions here? Go ahead.
I do. Do you have any ranches as your elevation?
Yeah, we'll have one ranch with 3 or 4 elevations.
Okay.
So,
in looking at the plan, I do appreciate that you're connecting to the neighbor that will be to the south with the sidewalk and promoting some kind of opportunity for kids between the two neighborhoods to actually get back and forth between the two. And then also having an access to open space between lots 12 and 13. So I think that was, I like the fact that you've included that. Over the regulated wetland, is that going to be a boardwalk? Is that a asphalt?
there'll be a short boardwalk here.
Okay.
Point right here where it kind of converges into the culvert there.
Okay. And then, what am I going to ask you about? It's my number one question. Sidewalks. I see sidewalks.
Yeah, there's sidewalks on.
Yes.
Yes.
But, because I'm always trying to get people to move within our township from one place to the next, and the fact that some discussion has come up about recognizable benefits, is there an opportunity for you to do a crosswalk to Hassan-Cleaver, Deer Haven area? Because if you live in that south end of the township, there is no way to safely get anywhere. If you were to go through some of those subdivisions, the one that's behind Kroger, get through Hassan-Cleaver Farms, if you're riding your bike, you still can't cross over to cross over Griswold. And I'm wondering if you'd be willing to do a crosswalk right around the Hassan-Cleaver area. And would you be willing to bring, as a recognizable benefit, a sidewalk all the way up to 9 Mile? Because once we stop at the railroad tracks with your walkway or your path, you still can't get to 9 Mile.
On the 9 Mile, that's a long distance with, I understand the township owns part of it.
We can get you a nice easement.
Yes, but that's a long area. And my problem is, the critical mass of this thing is 37 lots. It's not a 100-unit subdivision.
Right.
If it's a 100-unit subdivision, you take that cost divided over the number of units, it become, it's manageable. You take a significant cost divided over 37, it becomes prohibitive. So I don't know the answer on the crosswalk, because I'm the only reason why I'm a little bit versed in it is because at the last planning commission on Mr. Arkins.
You can thank Dwayne for the mid-block crossing,
Yes, the
which
mid-block
I'm able
crossing.
to say.
So other than that, I have not, I have no idea what the regulations are. I have no idea what the cost is. So
And as much as I appreciate the contribution to the park, I mean, this is I know we've had at least 3 other contributions to the park, and it's gonna be the, you know, the park jewel of the township, but, if you were able to add some additional sidewalks that will get north to 9 Mile, that's, while you're doing your project, it's using those dollars instead of it going into a fund and sitting there and not really having the same value in 5 years as it is now. That's, you know, that's where I'm coming from on that. And I know that that was identified at the planning commission level for a contribution to the park, but you know, I see this as a very tangible, immediate use of a contribution. Since you're already gonna be bringing that, that path, you're right there anyway. And we keep talking about trying to get people safely, especially in the last few items with that 9 Mile, the 9 Mile developments. So those are my only comments at this time.
Rick, this little park you got here in the front, what's your idea for that?
Some benches,
Just benches or any playground equipment, or, I mean, did you have anything other than?
right now we've proposed benches in there.
So it's somewhat more of a rest as opposed to a park.
It's a open space park.
Okay. Maybe if you were walking or riding your bicycle and you crossed over, you could rest at that bench.
Why did you do that? I've just got a question. Why did you do that? Why did you put the park there and not a house?
It gives it more of an open field coming in. That's why Jim Allen had placed that there.
I'm just asking. I
Yeah.
like it. I like
Yeah.
to have that there. I'm just asking.
Kind of gives you a focal point when you come in.
Yeah, it's rough on the headlights too. If you lived in that house
Yeah.
all night long, everybody's headlights would shine.
I bet you'll knock them down.
Hmm?
I bet you'll knock down the headlights.
Well, could, if it's a big bench, like that big chair we have on the park.
Yes. There will be no big chair.
Big chair?
No big chair.
What about Chris's point about the setback, that 80-foot? Can you get 80 foot back on that number one?
Yeah, Patrick, I think we can flip the corner there.
Yeah, for that lot 5, I think it was to get the setback. And then there was another question about the setback of between 200 and 300 feet. I looked through the ordinance on that, and that's an applicable setback if there's a density bonus consideration where we go from a parallel plan up. Anything between 200 and 300 foot is a consideration for a density bonus. Here, it's not really applicable because there's no parallel plan, but the lots do meet the 75-foot minimum from the right-of-way, and then with the exception of Lot 1, I think they're all well over 100 feet.
I have a question on the elevations. One of my comments was that we didn't receive those. As far as the widths and, I guess, depths of those elevations, are all those elevations going to be basically 40 feet?
40 to 42 feet wide, yes.
40 to 42
42
feet?
to 45.
And the lot?
Your lots are, Patrick, what's our,
No, because your lots are only 60 feet.
they're 60,
So you'd have 60 feet, so you'd have 50 feet of, actually,
I
there's
think the
20 feet
average
between
lot was
homes.
69 feet.
Yeah, 63 is the minimum lot width.
yeah.
63.
The average is. You must have some that are well into the 70s, because if you're getting an average, the
Yeah.
average is
Average is
69
just under
point-
70.
yeah.
So most of the product is 40'8", and then there's, I think the Boston is 42 or 45.
Okay. And as far as the
The
depth of
the depth of
those,
them will be anywhere, depending if they put a morning room or sunroom on the back. When a sunroom, it's fully enclosed, full foundation underneath it. They'll be 40 to 58 feet in that
Okay.
range.
I guess what I'm getting at is we have the rear storm sewer easements that are going to be along the back of all these properties, and just, you know, what I've looked at in the past projects is if these homes would be able to have a deck or a patio that would not be impeding the easement or the wetland
These, we
setbacks.
learned our lesson over at Twin Pines. Those are 100-foot deep lots. Okay. We picked that up as what I would call a salvage development in the down.
Right.
So these are 120 foot deep lots, so there's room to put the deck in there.
Okay, I know it just looks like if you look along lots, 20, 21, 24 and 25, your easement and wetland buffers are overlapping. It's just gonna push, they're gonna be tight, I guess, and without really looking at the elevations and
Without doing a
against the
specific
plans, it's tough to tell if they'll work.
And it may be that those lots can't have the morning room on it, so we can exclude morning rooms. We obviously have to fit within the building envelope when we submit for a building permit.
Yeah, the recent amendments that we made to the zoning ordinance to correct some issues we had as a result of things like this, I think we had talked about possibly requiring at least a single sheet that laid out exactly where your, accessory type additions, patios, covered morning room areas, decks could go to, and have that in a plan approved. So there was no coming back later with, we didn't realize this was going to be the case. It was approved this way, so everybody should know. So it's a permission ahead of time, not a forgiveness later thing. And I'm not saying it was you. I'm just saying in general we've had issues everywhere. Not
I've been up to enough meetings that there's.
Yeah. So I'd certainly like to make sure we address that really very specifically. Which that's probably what you were.
Yeah, that's where I was going with it. So going back to your park with the benches, if indeed that is the intent to just have a couple benches in the grass open space, if there can be the turf there, actually make it a nice grass, so it is a place that people could kick around a soccer ball or lawn darts if they still make those. Something there, because if it is an open area, I know we've had this on, I think it was Rathmore that had an open space in front that was more of a, passive park. I guess I'm not against what you're trying to get at, but if something on the landscape plan or something that shows a, more of a hardy seed mix or something like that, that would be that'd be beneficial. On your sheet CP1, there's a railroad buffer that's called out. I wasn't sure is that just, that's not anything proposed? Yeah.
That jagged thing?
Yeah, it's this here. That's nothing proposed, it's just designating.
I think what that is designating we're going to leave the vegetation there.
Okay.
So we're not going to go and clear that area. We're going to leave that as natural vegetation.
And then I guess my last question might not necessarily be for you, but it involves the planting in the North Triangle piece. It's bare root tree method of planting. So basically, it's little 12-inch tall sapling root balls that would be put out there. Is that, I guess, maybe Patrick would know, but is that covered under our landscape bond for that type? That's just different than what we've had in the past.
Tree bonds.
It could be. Typically on required landscaping, it's pretty simple to translate, and then, over a period of time when we go and inspect it. But for the saplings, it can certainly be made part of it. If that's the case, I'd recommend having that as a condition, and in the PD agreement, just so that we're clear on it, that it'd be a little bit different than the normal landscaping, but I think we could figure something out for bonding for those.
Okay. I guess, my last concern was still the front yard setbacks down to 25 feet. Again, it looked like all the elevations had 2-car garages, which, maybe, you'll have 2 cars. I guess at the most you could have 4 cars if they park appropriately. So I always get nervous when you only can get 1 car and you're outside your driveway. And if you're anything like Some people who just have a bunch of stuff in their garages and park outside.
You know,
I have been guilty of that, so.
Funny thing is, I have a solution for that. You want to hear it? I bet you can guess it.
Go for it.
5-foot setbacks, I can put a third car garage on these.
Yep.
Don't like that idea.
There are a lot of people with 3-car garages that don't get any of their cars into 3-car garages.
All right, we have any other questions?
I had one, John. In the southwest corner, there's an area that you consider to be unregulated wetland. It's in reasonably close proximity to a regulated wetland. I mean, there you are.
Yes.
Are you certain that this is not going to be regulated? Because it's in pretty close proximity to a regulated wetland system.
This has gone through a DEQ walk prior to me picking up this parcel, and the distance has not changed between here and here.
Right. I just wanted to make sure that, so you're gonna fill that unregulated wetland, which is the open space that's really behind lots 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's gonna get, the whole thing is, or just the backs of the lots.
Yeah, because it looks like it's wooded around the
Yeah.
perimeter of it, and you're gonna leave a good amount of the vegetation on the west and south side
Yes.
alone, and fill only a
The back
portion
one.
on the north and east side.
Correct. Next time I'll give you a warning before I come out.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I mean,
I did have one more question, and I know the answer, but this is the second, maybe third development that's close to the 9 and Griswold intersection. Is there an opportunity to get a contribution toward the traffic signal at 9 and Griswold?
Once again, this started out as an affordable type product. And I'm not complaining. I'm here. I'm happy with the project, but we started off in hopes of getting something similar to what my neighbor has there, and be in the high 2s to low 3s. Now we're getting into 3 1/4, and at 37 lots, there just isn't the room to keep doling out the checkbook. And at 37 lots, this is not the cause of your problem. The cause of the problem is the background traffic going up and down Griswold Road.
but it can be part of the solution.
All right, any other questions? Go ahead.
I beat him up already at the planning commission.
Any others? John, anything? Michelle?
I have some.
Well, then it'd be time to make a motion here and get this thing behind us, or one way or the other. Anybody want to make that motion?
So Rick, any contribution beyond the 10,000 for the park is a no-go for you?
Let me check on the crosswalk and see what that entails. Or I guess the question is at the planning commission, we deliberated back and forth pretty heavily at the contribution.
I wanted more, you gave less. Just saying.
Yes, I wanted, because of this piece being the challenge it is, I think that this project coming forward and removing the question mark in the township is a huge benefit to the township, and a huge benefit to the residents around that area. And it's consistent with future land use and patterns out there. I think this is a good project the way it stands now.
I think he asked for more money, not if it's a good project. Anybody like to make a motion, one way or the other here?
Well, I guess my question is, if you don't know what is gonna happen with this crossing and you wanna look at it, it puts us in a little bit of a spot to make a decision based on what you may or may not be able to do later. And in fairness to you, you should know what it is we're gonna wanna see from you, and we should be able to ask you to tell us what you think you can do as far as public benefit.
Patty, can you remind me, what did you ask for in Planning Commission?
15.
Okay.
Should have gave it.
If
Should've
we're
just-
5 grand,
You should have just ponied up at the 15.
if we're 5 grand apart, I'm there.
There you go. We got
Done.
15.
But I'm
Should have
not,
gave it to me at the planning commission. I'd have been so happy. Now I gotta be crabby. Should have just
I
gave
was
it.
gonna say 15, and I was gonna remove lot 1.
See,
And
there you
create
go.
more distance between the entryway. You'd be at 130 feet. That'd be less woodland. You'd have to, look at all the money you'd save on tree clearing.
if you look at, once again, my neighbor and what they're at,
Well, your neighbor is that's apples and tangerines. That's a whole nother issue that can't be compared, thankfully, to anything else in the township. That was an old story that we don't have time in the night to revisit.
This
But-
should be part of that.
if you
And
look at
so
the
I just,
yeah, I really don't want to give up a lot. I mean, we've come through planning commission at a unanimous. That doesn't happen very often. We've been at this a year and a half. You know, my lot count has stayed consistent for that year and a half. I haven't added. It's been, actually, when I first started, it was more. We cut it back already. From when we first started the rezoning, we're at 42. I think 37 is a fair number.
What is an approximate amount, if there are no site distance issues for a crosswalk, Leslie? I know you don't like being put on the spot, but, I mean, I don't even know what I'm asking as far as a monetary amount. I just know that I want people to be able to get safely across a road somewhere,
If the grades work, it's 2 ramps and some paint.
and that costs,
and some signs.
Permitting, maybe 5 to 10. I don't know. I mean, I haven't put out.
right, well, I mean, I don't even have an idea.
Ballpark 5 grand.
So if it were to say $10,000 contribution to the park and then a crosswalk,
No, I got 15.
you get 15, but I want a crosswalk because I want people to
You get that
safely-
separate.
Well, then $5,000 for the pathway fund to be used toward the crosswalk, unless we want to put him on the hook for getting the thing approved, which is going to be the big issue, which
Let's do
I would
that.
prefer to have 15 plus the crosswalk and let him, he's going to make an application to RCOC anyway and roll this into the one application, and he's nodding his head, which.
I like what you just said,
See?
Mr. O'Neill.
I'm happy.
And it
So
would
it's
be
15
very,
plus a crosswalk.
Rick?
And 37 lots. You can't hit me on both sides. You can't hit me in reducing lots, and
We can.
you can, but
Don't,
this has
don't
been a
say we
pretty,
can't.
this has been a pretty good faith negotiation through a year and a half long process that I think I've been very, very fair in what we're offering here.
Well, does somebody want to carve that motion out? Anyone want to do that?
Oh, well.
Let's move this thing forward.
I'll make a motion to approve and move forward Lyon Station AP-17-57 preliminary review with the addition of $15,000 donation to the 11 Mile Park and also the crosswalk installation
to Deer Haven Drive.
to Deer Haven Drive. That's my motion.
Letters?
Oh, and the letters, yes. Hang on one second. And the. I already turned them over.
CES is 827.
Yep, I'm getting there. Just give me a second. With the letters, with the McKenna review letter of August 28th, 2018, and also the letter from CES dated August 27th.
Everyone understand that motion? You
I-
have a second on that, or, go ahead, Sean.
Well, I was just going to ask that to that motion, there be added a requirement to show a sheet that shows the footprint of potential either 3-season rooms off of whatever you want to call it, morning room off of the back of a house, a deck, a patio, so we don't run into a rear yard setback issue. So however that is memorialized in a plan, and Patrick and Leslie can follow up on that to make sure it's in there, but so there's no question.
Final PD plan?
Yeah, somewhere in the final.
I'll amend my motion to include that.
Good to the amendment. All right, so we have amended motion. Everybody understand that? Do we have a second on that?
Can I ask to amend the motion again?
That's,
Just, under Patrick's guidance about the, I don't know if it has to be in this motion or not, but the, having the bond, the landscape bond cover the reforestation.
I'll add that
As
to my
well,
motion. I'll add
just to
that,
make
because
sure.
I think that's a good thing.
And we would carry
Second.
that forward to the final PD, should this motion pass, including the PD agreement itself.
Right, does that end up getting put in the actual, it'd be in the PD agreement itself? Okay.
are you good with that?
I'm good with that.
Does everyone understand that? Do we have a second on that?
Did anyone second the first proposed amendment?
No, it's not been seconded
Okay.
yet. It's amended
Okay.
twice, no second. Anyone want to second that?
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We did have somebody that would like to come up. Are you good? Everything's good? Any further discussion?
Technically, you vote on the amendment first and then the original motion.
Okay.
We never had an original motion. I don't think that was.
There was
properly
never one
seconded.
seconded.
Oh, no one seconded it?
No one seconded it.
Oh, all right. Okay.
That's why
It's
I
just been
waited.
one long fun.
One long amended motion.
All right.
All right, then, we have a motion, we have a second, and no further discussion. Let's call this one by roll, please.
John Hicks,
Yes.
Sean O'Neill,
Because it's consistent with the master plan, and he's increased his community benefit, and he's reforesting the north part of the property, I will say yes.
Christopher Enlow,
Yes.
Michelle Cash,
Yes.
Lisa Blades,
Because of the crosswalk, I would say yes.
Patricia Carcone,
Yes, because I got the $15,000.
and John Dolan.
Yes, for all the above reasons.
That
Sorry.
park is the gift that keeps on giving.
Thank you, Rick.
All right, moving on. Exotic Automation and Supply AP 18 rezoning. Patrick.
Thank you. This application, there's a couple of applications here that are zoning related for exotic automation. The first is the rezoning. The next one will be the special land use, and I'll get into a little bit of detail why we're going in this order. The site is located on the north side of Grand River Avenue across from Haas Road, and it has several different addresses. The total site is 11.25 acres of land, and it's located just west of Lyon Pines Drive. The site consists of 19 parcels, which are either vacant or contain residences. The applicant proposes to rezone the 11.25 acres from RO Research Office to I-1 Light Industrial. Concurrent with the rezoning application, there was also a site plan application and a special land use application. The site plan application and the special land use application are under the current RO zoning district. Light industrial uses are special land uses in the RO district, so the applicant is eligible to make that application regardless of the outcome of the rezoning application. The advantage of the rezoning application is that the I-1 district will allow the applicant to do some things that the RO district won't because of some of the restrictions in the RO district. For example, in the I-1 light industrial district, light industrial uses are permitted uses and not special land uses. There's also a little bit more flexibility in terms of setbacks and some development. So that rezoning application, which is the subject of this item on the board's agenda, is for the purpose of the future and any changes that might take place, not necessarily for the present, although it puts the applicant in a little bit better position if this rezoning is approved. There are a few steps to the applicant's process. The first is the applicant is proposing to vacate the existing subdivision on that site and vacating Elizabeth Lane, which is a public road. So those are two separate processes that have to take place outside of the regular rezoning and site plan and special land use reviews. At the August 13th, 2018 meeting, the Planning Commission approved the site plan application subject to several conditions, including approval of the accompanying special land use application. And the special land use application will be next on the agenda, so we'll go through that at that time. And that site plan has been reviewed by the Planning Commission, has been approved. There are no other steps, although there are several conditions with that site plan application that have to be fulfilled before they can have pre-construction, pull their permits, etc. Also, with the special land use application, what we'll look at is there's a part of the site that's also located in the Wellhead Protection Overlay District. Any non-residential uses of land in the Wellhead Protection Overlay District require special use approval. So regardless of whether it's in the RO district or the I-1 district, because it's in the Wellhead area, that's subject to special land use review. So next up in our letter is our review of the rezoning. Article 9 of the zoning ordinance includes procedures and criteria to be reviewed when there's a rezoning proposed. Specifically, Section 9.03E of the zoning ordinance sets forth 9 criteria to evaluate rezoning proposals. We have a summary of these within the letter that I'll try to summarize quickly. The first is, will the proposed amendment be in accordance with the basic intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance? The site can meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance. It's surrounded by other industrial properties, whether they're zoned industrial or some are zoned commercial and are heavy commercial. It can be serviced by public facilities, and it meets a lot of the intent statements of the zoning ordinance for that I-1 zoning. So in terms of consistency with the zoning ordinance, it would be consistent with the surrounding parcels that are either zoned I-1 or B3, which is the general business district. The second is whether it will, the rezoning will further the comprehensive planning goals of the township. The future land use map in the master plan classifies the site as industrial and recommends a light industrial or research office in the future land use map. So the light industrial district would be consistent with the master plan. The third criteria is whether conditions have changed since the zoning ordinance was adopted or if there was a mistake. This is an item that's not applicable, as we can't find a mistake that would warrant this type of rezoning. Basically, the conditions had changed in terms of the status of the property and the redevelopment of the property. The fourth criteria is whether it will correct an inequitable situation created by the zoning ordinance. This item is not applicable because it's not a matter of whether a situation is inequitable. It's rather just a rezoning to change the use of a property. The fifth is whether the amendment will result in an unlawful exclusionary zoning. Again, we don't find that this is applicable because it's a zoning that's supported by the master plan and it is consistent with surrounding zoning. So in terms of anything exclusionary, that does not apply. The sixth criteria is whether the amendment will set an inappropriate precedent resulting in the need to correct future planning mistakes. Again, it's supported by the master plan. It meets, it's consistent with surrounding zoning districts. So there's no items that come up in terms of setting an inappropriate precedent. These are the things that we look for when we look at a rezoning. We look at the surrounding area, we look at the intent of the zoning ordinance, we look at the master plan, and the proposed zoning of I-1 is consistent with those criteria. The seventh deals with the consistency of the zoning with surrounding property. We've addressed that where the surrounding property is either zoned I-1 or B3. I-1 and B3 are, in many cases, adjacent to one another, are consistent zoning districts. So rezoning the subject site to I-1 would also be consistent. The eighth criteria is if a zoning is requested, could all the requirements of the proposed zoning classification be complied with on the subject parcel? And we find that if the 19 parcels are combined into a single 11.25 acre parcel, that would be sufficiently large enough that the permitted light industrial uses could comply with all the dimensional requirements of the I-1 district. And finally, the ninth criteria is if a rezoning is requested, is the proposed zoning consistent with the trends in land development in the general vicinity of the property in question? The proposed rezoning is consistent with the trends in land development along Grand River Avenue. There has been a lot of redevelopment and development along Grand River for industrial and other non-residential uses. So we would find that the zoning would be consistent with trends in land development in the area. On page 4 of our letter, we have a summary of the analysis of the criteria that we recommend in the findings of fact in our recommendation for approval of this rezoning. And specifically, there are 8 items that we would recommend incorporating with the findings. The first is that the future land use map of the master plan, which was most recently amended in December 2015, classifies the future land use of the site as light industrial / research office. The applicant's request to rezone from RO to I1 is consistent with the master plan. Second, the rezoning of the subject parcel to I1 would be compatible with the existing uses and zoning on the adjacent properties and surrounding land. Third, this rezoning will not set an inappropriate precedent for zoning in the surrounding area, much of which is already zoned I1. Fourth, this rezoning proposal for all of the 19 included parcels would encourage elimination of existing structures and uses that do not comply with the current RO zoning and that are incompatible with the intense uses in a business and industrial area. Fifth, there are no inequitable situations created by either zoning district. Sixth, the rezoning will not result in the exclusion of any uses that the township can reasonably accommodate on other appropriately zoned land. Seventh, combining the current 19 parcels into one 11.25 acre parcel would create a parcel sufficiently large enough that permitted light industrial uses could comply with all of the dimensional requirements of the zoning ordinance. And finally, eighth, the proposed rezoning is consistent with the trends in land development in the general vicinity. At the Planning Commission meeting on August 13th, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the rezoning with those findings in Section 9.03E of the zoning ordinance. And with that, we would also recommend approval of the rezoning. This is a zoning amendment, so there are 2 readings, a first reading and then a final review. And with that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Any questions for Patrick on this? Is it
Yeah,
pretty
just
simple, rezoning?
On number 8, when you say it has, if they combine all the parcels together, there shouldn't be any issues. So that means they wouldn't have to go to ZBA or anything in the future, that whole 11.25 acres should work with what they're planning on doing?
Correct. When we looked at this at the Planning Commission, we compared the RO district and the I1 district, and what they're proposing would meet the standards in both districts for the setbacks, lot coverage, et cetera.
Okay. I have another question, but it's not really related to the planning report.
Go ahead.
I guess I was just curious because there are duplexes out there right now. Are those occupied?
But they're being unoccupied at the...
Okay, so they...
This would be, in my opinion, this would be a great use for this property. It's kind of like all over the place right now. It's in the middle of a light industrial situation. I think this would be a great use for it, and that's just my opinion. I think this is a simple rezoning that we should go forward. Go ahead, any questions for Patrick?
I'll make a motion to move AP 1837 to second reading.
I'll support.
Okay, we have a motion and a support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Moving on to special land use, and Patrick, that's you again.
Okay, thank you. The next item is the special land use itself for the site, where we'll actually get into the proposed use of the site and the proposed development. We have a review letter dated August 28th of 2018 that reviews the items as well as the Planning Commission's recommendation. On the 11.25 acre site, the applicant is proposing to construct a 133,910 square foot building on the site. And with the Research Office District, which is the subject of this review, light industrial uses are special land uses in the RO district. Also, the southern part of the site is located in the Wellhead Protection Overlay District, and light industrial uses are also special land uses in the Wellhead District. So the special land uses for a light industrial use, but for two different reasons. One, that it's in the RO district, and then another, that it's in the Wellhead Protection Overlay District. The review procedure is that the Planning Commission holds a public hearing, and the Planning Commission makes a recommendation on special land uses, and the Township Board takes the final action on the special land uses. The public hearing on the special land uses was held on August 13th, 2018, by the Planning Commission. And there was one comment received that was in support of Exotic Automation's business and its plan for the site. After closing the public hearing and deliberating on the application, the Planning Commission unanimously supported a motion to recommend approval of the special land uses to the Township Board based on the findings and recommendations of the McKenna letter of August 10th and the CES letter of August 9th. Next, in our review letter of August 28th, we'll go into some of the review criteria for special land uses, both the general standards as well as the wellhead protection standards. In Article 6, in Section 6.03 of the ordinance, there are 9 standards for granting a special land use based on that. And I'll go through briefly with some of these standards and identify the criteria. The first is compatibility with adjacent uses. As we spoke of in the proposed rezoning application, most of the surrounding uses are either heavy commercial or industrial. So a use like exotic automation, which is a light industrial use, would be compatible. Second, the compatibility with the master plan and the zoning ordinance. The master plan classifies the site as light industrial / research office, and a light industrial use is consistent with both zoning districts and the classification on the master plan. Under the third, public services, the site will have public water and sanitary sewer, and also the Grand River Avenue corridor contains many industrial and commercial land uses, and the road will adequately service the special land use. We don't anticipate a change in the requirement for public services with this use. Fourth is the impact on traffic. There's a traffic impact study that's been provided. The report is dated August 1st, 2018. While the traffic impact statement is addressed in our accompanying site plan review letter, which was for the site plan that was approved for the development itself, the traffic impact study indicates that the intersection movements will continue to operate at an acceptable level of service D or better during both peak hours within the development of the project. Additionally, the traffic impact study indicates that all approaches and movements at the proposed site driveways to Grand River Avenue will operate at an acceptable level C or better during both peak hours. And the traffic impact study is based on 51 warehouse employees, 85 office employees, and 6 to 7 daily truck trips. Under the fifth criteria, the detrimental impacts, the proposed site application is accompanied by an industrial activity statement that addresses any potential detrimental effects. According to the industrial activity statement, there will be no wastewater used in the processes, and any water used to cool the machines will be clean when it's discharged. Sixth is the isolation of uses and preventing those. There's no isolation of uses because it's a industrial and heavy commercial area. The seventh criteria is whether the use is based on need. Over the last several years, the demand for industrial and high-tech development has been high in Lyon Township, and specifically along the Grand River corridor. So given the site's location and one of the few areas that such a development is available along Grand River, we find that this would probably be based on the need, although generally it's a market-driven item. The eighth criteria is the economic well-being of the community. The proposed use will provide additional jobs and tax base for the township, similar to other industrial development in the area. And then finally, ninth, for those general special land use standards, is the compatibility with the natural environment. The proposed use will make use of existing infrastructure and is not expected to introduce any significant environmental impacts, provided the standards of the Wellhead Protection Overlay District are met. And there are many trees on the site that are also preserved, and the site plan meets the requirements of the landscaping and the tree replacement. The next item in the letter, near the bottom of page 3, deals with the special land use standards of the Wellhead Protection Overlay District. One of the first items that we had recommended was that a delineation of the Wellhead Protection Overlay District be included on the plans. The line of that district goes through the southern part of the building, which is mostly office space. There is some industrial space, I think, in that area, but their chemical storage room is located on the far north side of the building, which is well outside of that Wellhead Protection Overlay boundary. But nevertheless, if part of the wellhead protection overlay boundary is on a site, the whole parcel is subject to the regulations. So this is where the special land use comes in, where there's additional information needed. The next item in the list of regulated substances, we recommend that the industrial activity statement include which chemicals, if any, are regulated substances. And according to the activity statement, there's no wastewater used in the process. And finally, with the regulated substances, we recommend that a management plan meeting the requirements of the Wellhead Protection Overlay District be acceptable to the fire chief. The next item we would look for in the Wellhead Protection Overlay District is the service and facilities. As we previously noted, the chemical storage room, it's an 18 by 18 foot room located on the far north side of the building, and it's sealed and contained, so it's well outside of the Wellhead Protection Overlay District. But we will need the quantities of it just to verify the terms of the Wellhead Overlay District. The third, under existing contamination, there's no known existing contamination noted on the plans, in the industrial activity statement or on their MDEQ checklist. On the MDEQ checklist and industrial activity statement, the use includes plastic and rubber molding, assembling, and some occasional welding. Under the fifth item, the conditions of section 4210, the township board may grant special land use approval only upon finding that the proposed use meets the following standards. There's two standards. First, in no way during construction or thereafter shall a project adversely affect the quality or quantity of water that is available in the Wellhead Protection Overlay District. And second, the project shall be designed to avoid substantial disturbance of the soils, topography, drainage, vegetation, and water-related natural characteristics of the site. And finally, the sixth item in the Wellhead Protection Overlay District is the prohibited uses of section 4211. We recommend that the applicant note if any of the chemicals noted in the industrial activity statement are regulated substances as defined in section 42.02. If any of the chemicals are regulated substances, then the quantities must be noted, and the quantities must comply with the zoning ordinance. So therefore, our recommendation for the use is a recommendation of approval of the light industrial use, subject to the following four conditions. First, the delineation of the Wellhead Protection Overlay District must be included on the plans. Second, the applicant must state which chemicals, if any, listed on the industrial activity statement are regulated substances as defined in section 42.02. If any of the chemicals are regulated substances, the quantities must be noted, and the quantities must comply with section 42.02. The third condition is that the fire chief must review and approve the management plan pursuant to section 42.02A. And finally, fourth, the condition of site plan approval must be met. That concludes our letter, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
All right. Thank you, Patrick. Any questions for Patrick on this special land use?
Patrick, do you think it would be appropriate to add to the list of requirements that vacating the subdivision Elizabeth Lane would be required? I mean, I think that will take care of itself, but you think that would be problematic to add this to the list?
I think that would be a reasonable condition. I think the whole development depends on it.
Absolutely.
So okay. I don't think there's any harm in including that.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions?
Just
Go ahead.
not really a question, just a general concern about the items that are listed, and just to make sure, just as John, as we discussed at the very beginning of the meeting, the upgrades to the water system, just to make sure that reading through the packet, it didn't sound like there was going to be anything adverse to impact it, but just making sure all that's T's are crossed, I's are dotted.
And I think that is in here with the wellhead protection.
Yeah, and anything that, that we need in terms of follow-up to review, we can. And if it meets the standard, then it meets it. If it doesn't, they have to either reduce the quantities or come back.
Okay, any other questions? Anyone? Well, if everyone agrees, then a motion's in order to approve the special land use.
I'll make a motion to approve AP 18-40B for exotic automation special land use, subject to the conditions in the August 28th McKenna letter, as well as a condition to require the vacation of the subdivision and Elizabeth Lane that are currently located on this property, or a portion of this property.
I'll support.
All right, we have a motion to support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Moving on, resolution establishing an industrial development district. This is what the public hearing was all about. This is a single IDD,
district. Mm-hmm.
right? Does everyone understand what this is all about here?
Make a motion to adopt resolution 2018-09.
I'll support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Moving on, approving the application of exotic automation and supply for industrial facilities tax exemption certificate.
Okay,
Tina, you wanna-
I can give a recap on that. The application process to receive an industrial tax exemption certificate involves two steps: the establishing of an industrial development district, which you just did, and the approval of the industrial facilities tax exempt application. Once an industrial development district has been established, the board then reviews the IFT application. The application process involves the industrial property tax abatement must be approved at both the local and state levels. The eligible business files an application with the Michigan Department of Treasury Form 1012, and that is filed with the local clerk after the district has been established and no later than 6 months after commencement of the project. The local unit adopts the resolution approving the application and determines the length of years for the abatement. After a local public hearing, the application is filed and reviewed by the state. The State Tax Commission then grants final approval. Applications with required attachments must be received by the State Tax Commission no later than October 31st in order to receive consideration and action by December 31st. Applications to the State Tax Commission must include an agreement signed by the local unit and the operator of the facility outlining the conditions of the abatement. This is called the letter of agreement. This shall include an affidavit that no payment of any kind in excess of the fee allowed under the Act has been made or promised in exchange for a favorable condition of exemption. Once approved, the firm pays an additional IFT tax instead of a property tax, to which reflects the abatement savings. The Charter Township of Lyon in March of 2015 adopted a formal tax abatement policy which includes the use of a scorecard to help determine the impact of the applicant's investment in the community. The total number of points scored is applied to a scale to determine the term of the abatement. The higher the score, the longer the term recommendation. Applicants scoring 99 points or less are not eligible for an abatement. The scoring process is completed by the Lyon Township DDA Restructuring Committee utilizing data provided by the applicant. There are 8 economic impact categories reviewed: investment ownership status, whether it's leased or owned property, new investment value, number of full-time permanent jobs located or retained in the township, number of full-time or permanent jobs to be created in 1 to 3 years, quality of the new jobs based on annual salaries, potential local negative impact on the community, utility impact, the investment of bringing utilities to the site, and if the company qualifies for one of the emerging sectors in Oakland County. The Lyon Township DDA Economic Restructuring Committee met on August 14th, 2018 to review and score the application. At a regular meeting of the DDA held at 7 p.m. later that day, the committee made its recommendation to support the application, which scored 670 points. The Lyon Township DDA Board was supportive of the project and saw the value of the investment and the creation of 30 new jobs to be beneficial to the community, as well as the construction of a new and attractive industrial building along the DDA Grand River Industrial Corridor. Based on the points scored applied to the scoring system scale, the applicant would be eligible for 10 to 12 years of abatement. As the applicant scored 170 points above the minimum 500 points for that scale, the DDA Board is recommending that the Township Board approve the application for a maximum 12 years, which amounts to a reduction in property taxes of approximately 50% over the next 12-year period. Receiving a tax
Tina?
abatement.
Could I have a question on the scorecard? If you don't mind me interrupting. When these are done with the ranges of the 10 to 12 years or the 6 to 10 years, since this is the highest category, it's 500 plus. I was just curious on if, with the recommendation of doing the maximum 12 years, has there been any scores that have been this high, or is this one of the
We have.
highest?
In fact, the Magna Corporation was one of our highest scores recently. They received a 12-year abatement, which will expire in 2028. That development had an investment of $56 million for their development right there on the corner of Grand River and South Hill. We've also done a 12-year abatement for Henrob, and we did a 10-year abatement for Test Tech. All of our other abatements have been anywhere from 3 to 6 years. And we've had a total of 9 abatements issued since 2010.
No.
What
Excellent.
was the investments the others put into the community? Henrob was pretty large.
Yeah, I don't have those exact numbers in front of me,
Tech was
but
pretty large also.
yes, Test Tech was a large one. And Henrob, because Henrob had a 3-phase development as well.
That was big.
It is important to note that the scorecard is used as a guideline. So it is still up to the discretion of the board to decide, based on the merits of the application, what terms you're interested in offering to the applicant.
Yeah. And I guess that was the reason for my question, was because it isn't, like, with all the other ones, there's a low and a high point for the range of years. And this just has a low, it's 500 and above. So, just curious on those. I guess if the DDA recommended the 12 years, I have no issue with that. So, I guess I'd make a motion to approve resolution 2018-10 for the 12-year period to approve the application of exotic automation and supply for industrial facilities tax exemption certificate.
I'll support that.
All right, did you have anything left?
No, everything else was in your packet, so it's all supporting documents.
Okay,
John,
we have a motion. Go ahead.
I just
No,
wanted,
we
to
have a
make,
support.
I
Go
wanted
ahead.
to make a
Go ahead
comment now that it's supported. I appreciate the scorecard, especially what I found interesting was item number 5, where it says that 91 employees would be making a range of $50,000 or less than $50,000 to $100,000 a year. And then these are like high-tech jobs that are not just like, this is not a starter job, it's not a part-time job. You're looking at also 28 employees anticipating making $100,000 or more annually. So am I reading that scorecard correctly?
That's
Okay.
correct.
So I think that's really beneficial for us as a township. And also, looking at item number 8, looking at the types of jobs, where you're identifying advanced electronics and controls, aerospace, advanced materials and chemicals, robotics and automation. And, I see this every day where there's this huge need for these types of jobs, and they're recruiting like crazy out of the high schools and trying to get young people to actually go into this type of work. And so I think it's fantastic that this company wants to come to our township and wants to have this number of employees involved. And it's if anybody has an opportunity to look at like the Pure Michigan Talent Connect websites, these are exactly the jobs that people are desperate, or companies are desperate to fill. And it's definitely, I think, a good for us as a township to have this. So there's my little, plug as a teacher. I see this kind of thing every day, and kids needing to get, guided into this type of thing.
Well, and these are exactly the kinds of uses we anticipate along Grand River. I mean, it's right in line with what we're really after, and it was really between our community and a community in Indiana, and they decided to invest here, and they're a Michigan company staying in Michigan and growing in Michigan, adding jobs and bringing all the good jobs that you mentioned along with them. And it's not often we get a chance to compete and win. I mean, we're a little place, and I think it's just kind of an indication of how great it is to do business in Michigan and Oakland County and Lyon Township. So I'm also happy that you're doing what you're doing here.
And the rendering looks nice too.
Yeah.
There's that, yeah.
Well, I've always been a pro-business guy, and I've never voted no on a tax rebate, and I'm not gonna start now. So we have a motion, we have a support. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There you go. Okay,
We're excited.
moving on. Approval to purchase a new fire marshal vehicle. That's Brian, come on up and talk to us.
Evening.
Hi there.
Brian?
Hopefully everyone had a chance to take a look at their packets I provided. I'm coming to you tonight we're looking to replace the current 2003 Ford Explorer I'm currently driving. Has over 104,000 miles currently. I've tried to take it to auto body repair shops, and as you see in the packet, there's only one quote. One company decided to look at it, and they were very reluctant to even give me that quote because of the damage and what the vehicle is actually worth. So what I'm asking for is to purchase a 2019 all-wheel drive Ford Explorer, white in color, with the lights, graphics, and the vehicle purchase not to exceed $40,000.
Okay.
This is all through state purchasing, so this is like, it makes it really easy for you to find prices because you just open a book and that's the cheapest price you find anywhere in the state and cuts to the chase, right?
Yep.
What, is this one equipped pretty well? Is this a plain Jane that you're gonna put lights and?
Yeah, it's going to be complete. It's going to be an emergency response vehicle that's also used for inspections with myself and the inspector.
Okay.
You're planning on trading the one in or
We'll
getting rid of it somehow?
We'll probably right now just keep it as a backup vehicle for us driving around to get stuff and things like that. Delivery time on this right now is anywhere between 4 and 6 weeks. And then once it's delivered, that's when we do get the invoice for it.
You mentioned it was an emergency response. So when you're not using it, if something happened in the middle of the night, someone else can use it at whatever. I assume it'd be parked at Station 1.
Yeah.
And they can use that to assist with responses if another vehicle's needed.
Yes.
I know it's just a vehicle, but personnel-wise.
In the specs, it comes with 4 key fobs, so it will be available.
I think it's great that we got 15 years out of the old car, but I mean, you could look at it two ways. It's either embarrassing that it's driving down the road, or it's great that we've got 15 years out of that car or maybe a combination of both. But
It was initially a building department vehicle.
Right, I remember that. So it's a hand-me-down.
Deputy chief, and then to the old fire marshal, and then to me.
We could do that again.
Yeah, so I mean, it's time to replace the car.
All right.
I have 2 questions. One, you identified, I mean, it looks pretty rough, so I see the rust, but you also identified something with the frame. So when I looked at the estimate, was it South Lyon collision?
Yes.
What's wrong with the frame? I mean,
it's rusted.
Okay, so I mean, when you go through all those pictures and just looking at cosmetically, it looks bad, but we're talking about structural integrity of this vehicle.
Yeah, I couldn't get a good picture of underneath for you.
You mean you couldn't crawl underneath for it?
No.
Okay.
It's unsafe.
Yes. So I just wanted to.
Could collapse right now.
I just wanted to, make sure that I was understanding that correctly. That it's not just that it's not all that pretty; it's unsafe. The frame is
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
And then
Especially for emergency response,
So you can't really take it down Milford Road or I'm sorry, Martindale Road? Is that what you're saying? It might like
You can as a challenge.
Okay. And is this going to fit in the bay or is this going to be stuck outside? Because I would hate to see a brand new vehicle.
We have room in the bay to either
Okay.
keep in the bay or possibly out in our back barn.
Okay, just so long as it's not going to be sitting out in the weather and then have it look like, okay. And that's all I have for tonight.
Can we be careful with the tinting? I know the last couple vehicles have been super dark, but there
Yes.
were different reasons for that, so just, okay, thank you.
And if you'd like any graphics I put on, we could have your approval on it.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Any other questions?
You parked next to me. It's in bad shape.
It's bad shape. It's been for a while.
Oh, that is pretty darn smart. You're neat.
Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion
Oh, go ahead.
to approve the purchase of a new fire marshal vehicle, a 2019 all-wheel drive Ford Explorer white, for not to exceed $40,000.
I'll support.
All right, we have motion support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There you go.
Thank you very much.
All right. Consideration of execution of a purchase agreement for sale of township property, 21001 Pontiac Trail. And again, this was one that we'd already talked about. We had made an agreement to go with Pearl, I believe is the name of the company. And this outlines the agreement. Has everyone had a chance to read through this? And if there is, it's 1.75 million. And if someone has any questions on this agreement, please. No, it's pretty boilerplate.
It's okay if I
Just-
speak?
Go, yeah.
I had one question.
Go ahead.
Go first.
Just, item 8A, number 13, it says that no part of the property is designated as a wetland. Do we know that for sure?
No, it's probably part of the due diligence that they're gonna go through.
Our knowledge.
Okay.
It's gonna probably be part of their due diligence and
Yeah,
their
they're gonna do
their
theirs.
timeframe.
Okay, just the wording on it, just kind of to the best of the
Well, we've had
seller's
this up
knowledge.
for sale
Okay.
for quite a while, and we're lucky to have Mark Zerlag from Thomas Duke, who has been taking care of this property for us for sale. And I'm hoping this one really sticks, and it would be nice because we'll have the ability to pay off the special assessment off of it, and that'll be done, and we can put that money back in the Southwest Sewer. And it just would be nice to get it back on the tax rolls and in the hands of a taxpayer again. Now, Mark's always done a fabulous job for us, and he got the agreement together. We sent it to Carol. Carol made some revisions. Mark and her went back and forth, and I read it over, and I think it's great, and
it's
the
good.
price is great for us, so.
My question for you was, the proceeds will go to which fund?
Southwest Sewer.
Well, what will happen is, we will pay off the special assessment debt in the Southwest Sewer. The remaining, I believe, will go in the Sewer Enterprise
Sewer
Fund.
Enterprise, that's what I
Correct.
thought.
So
Okay.
those are the two
The two
places it will go.
Or
Yes,
retire
correct.
debt and then go into the.
Retire debt,
okay.
well, and we have to pay back the Sewer Enterprise, all the money that we've taken out all these years to
Correct.
pay it, so.
Yeah.
Yes, yep. So, but it'll be free and clear of that debt, and the money will go back into the Sewer Enterprise, so. No money to the general fund,
Right.
but that's okay.
That's
It's
because
not-
money never came from
That's
the
correct.
general
It
fund.
never came from the
Right.
general fund. That's exactly right. But it'll be great. And I'm sure if you have any questions, Mark's available. And Carol helped with the contract, so I'm excited. I'm really excited, actually.
Yeah.
I don't have to keep track
So
of that.
I guess the motion would be to consider this, and if you think this is a good purchase agreement, to approve me to sign for it. And get this thing moving. So that would be the motion.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the agreement of sale between the township and, is it Pearl Acquisitions LLC, an Ohio limited liability company. In the agreement, we agree to sell the property for $1,750,000, which was already looked over by our attorneys.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Okay, moving on to the planner position update. And I don't know, you want to take this, Sean? You want to talk about this?
I think
or-
I can. So this has been discussed for quite some time now, and I think the three of us are at a point where we need to come back to really make sure that we understand what the board is expecting and what the feelings are, so we can either continue moving ahead or not. We approved a job description, we approved a pay range, we posted that. We had some interest. We found a couple of qualified candidates. We're able to interview one. And, you know, before we go back trying to potentially find others to interview or make a decision based on the interview we've had, I think that it was important for the three of us to maybe talk about this a little bit further. And I think, I don't know if Patty or John have anything to add, but that's sort of a summary of really where we're at this point and what we're asking.
I think the biggest problem that we have is probably the amount of money the position is offering. And the only reason I'm saying that is because we didn't have that much interest, qualified people that came to the board. And when we did call them in, only one responded. And I'm not really sure that he was cut for it. I mean, we didn't sit down and talk about that after the fact. But I think we didn't have the people show up that we thought we were going to.
Yeah, I think we advertised the range with a top end of 65,000. My thought is if we're gonna move ahead with this, I would ask that the board authorize a top end of 70,000 to re-advertise again in hopes that that would make a difference. You know, obviously, it depends on qualifications, but, you know, again, if the opposite is the case, if there's a feeling that we shouldn't move ahead any further, then I think it would be good to discuss that now instead of spending any more time on it, our time and others' time, either posting it and answering questions on it or coming in to participate in an interview.
Yeah, I think my position on this whole thing is I'd like to wait a little bit longer before we put this thing out again and get a good feeling for the McKenna with the new people that we have, just to get a good feeling of how they work with the township. And I mean, that's just my feeling. I'd like to, I'll be honest, I'd like to get a water person. I would like to, that's where I would like to go. I would like to, you know, Bob is going to be with us for,
10 more years, he said. Right. Minimum, maybe.
But we need to get somebody trained in that field because we now are in charge of our water system. And somebody under Bob would be more helpful to us right now, I think, than anything else. And that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, and from where I sit with this, and I don't want to go back into this for, a half hour. I've said this 5 times already, but this is a position I feel that we could have filled years ago. Not months, but years ago. But, and it has absolutely zero to do with the representation or work or quality of work from our consultant who, in my estimation, my feeling, my opinion, would remain on. This would just be a full-time body working 40 hours a week in the office and dealing with things like zoning enforcement and other things, which, I support more staff in that vein as well. I support more staff for the water department. Bob cannot do all of this himself. He does a fine job, but he's one person. And so this all goes back. This isn't just us trying to hire a bunch of people. This is us addressing years of need, years of pent-up need that we never addressed because everybody here was doing 2 jobs because we had no money to hire people to give the level of service that The residents expected, so we just tried to patchwork quilt it together, and that's a testament to everyone who works in this building so hard every day. But in fairness to them, we need to add people so they can go back to doing one person's job, or 1.5 people's job instead of 2. So if we need to hire 5 people to make that happen, then we should hire 5 people to make that happen and provide the service that the residents, are expecting. If it's 2 people, then we should hire 2
You
people.
have nowhere to put them.
Well, I was in this building today before the meeting, a few minutes before 5, and it was really hot over there because of all the body heat of all the people in that small area. So, yeah, we need either a bigger air conditioner or more room for these people to spread out. But yeah, I mean that's an issue. But we've got to figure something out. We've got to, the reason for not bringing help in shouldn't be because there's no seat for them. I mean that's not acceptable either. I'm not saying I disagree with you. I'm just saying that can't be the reason we don't.
I
do more
know,
with
we
what
gotta
have.
we gotta have room. We can't just hire people and not have a place to put them.
So while I think that, in my opinion, we should have a full-time person, I also think we should be looking to add full-time zoning enforcement staff and a full-time person to work for Bob. So I'm not saying one should be a priority over the other. That's just my feeling.
But I'll tell you, working here day to day, every single day, I do kind of prioritize things that we need. And the planner part of it was when I was here as a trustee, and I came once a month and I understood, but now that I'm in here every day, it's really not the vital place that we need. I really think that we have other positions that would be much better suited for us. And that's just me saying that. Now, Patty, you can speak, or Michelle, you can speak, but I mean, we have some other positions that I'd really like to talk about in budget time.
Yeah, and I'm not, this isn't, I hope it doesn't come across as rude, but it's September, and we've been doing this since January, talking about this, and I either want to move ahead and finish the job or be done with it tonight, because I don't want to spend any more time on it if this dog's not going to hunt. I just want to know. It doesn't
Okay,
matter.
I'll be honest with you, I'd rather be done with it, and that's just me.
That's fine. It's not there are no hard feelings.
No, I'm not taking it a hard feelings, that's my opinion. Working here every day, I think we have other things that would be better suited for us to go after with that salary right now. Now, you can talk, Patty, and Michelle, you can talk.
I actually feel the same way. And I've mentioned this to you on numerous occasions. We don't have time to train a planner. We just don't have the time. Whatever you want to say, if we get someone else here, who are they going to go to? They got to, unless they're super self-sufficient. And I'm really happy with McKenna. We really, really like Brian and Patrick. They are two sharp people. I mean, if we could have one of them as our full-time, I'd consider that, but.
He's smiling. I don't know if he's nodding.
I know, but you gotta be here to understand, they're so part of us, and they do such a wonderful job. They're so good with the residents. They're so good with our I guess the builders or all that. I kind of agree with John. Maybe we're just not ready for that right this second.
I'm not saying it's off the table by no means. I think maybe in the future, maybe it is something that we need to look at. I just don't know if it's time right now. But this board has got to give us direction. So I mean, if you want to keep this moving forward, I mean,
No.
we can.
I'm a no if you were asking the question. Should we keep it moving forward?
Lisa, you got anything to say?
Well, when Sean first proposed this, I thought it was a good idea. I think it's a great idea to get full-time staff, additional full-time staff here. Yes, I think that Patty brings up a good point. If we don't have room for them, it's not like they're going to work on the roof. But, I also agree with John that if we need people, it's a bigger problem. It's a more complex problem.
Well, we'll tell you what we need. Just like the fire chief for Mark or any other department. If we need it, we're going to tell you we need it, and we'll bring a proposal, and we'll bring a salary. We'll bring everything we need to ask for that, and we are going to be doing that.
It's coming.
Well, and I guess my point is that, last year when we sat on the committee to hire a new attorney, and we put hours and hours and hours of time into that. We brought a recommendation, and I was glad that the rest of the board supported that recommendation. And I would have been disappointed had somebody started to really have a problem with that recommendation because they weren't involved in those hours of time. And I know that Chris and John, and I don't know if Patty, were you involved in, hiring Bob? That was the same thing. Was it just?
I don't think I was on that
Was it
one.
just Chris and John?
it was the three of us.
Was it me too?
I think it was us three.
And so you guys came.
Sorry.
It was you, Patty. Don't worry.
I'm on water. That's all I can think of.
And so that recommendation came from that subcommittee, and I felt very comfortable with that, with their recommendation. So, I guess I've said this all along that yes, I think that having more staff in the township hall would be beneficial. I'm just still going to defer to what is the subcommittee recommending, because had I wanted to be on that committee, I would have asked to be on it, and I didn't do the interview or the job description. So I'm just I'm going to defer to what it is that the subcommittee is saying that is needed, and I agreed to have you guys look at it, and I trust. I trust the opinions that you guys have come up with, but I do want to have that as a possibility in the future. If it does come up again, then I think it warrants a discussion again. So I guess I'm just putting it back to the three of you guys. What is your recommendation to us? And then I feel more comfortable basing my decision on what it is you have as a committee recommendation.
I already said I'd like to
Well,
wait. I'd like to wait, like John and I, and maybe Michelle wants to chime in too. We really need a water person very badly, and we need extra help with zoning. I mean, those are the things that I think we need, and I think Michelle needs her accountant. So those are
And the reason I think we had a hard time with the accountant was Lanny only felt it was a part-time position. So when we interviewed, we got everybody who had accounting in school and maybe high school, but had not done it for a job. And we had like 80 resumes, and Raina and I could not find one person to even that was qualified to interview with positions and things that they had done. But again, I didn't put it out again because I just felt like at a part-time position, you're not going to get an accountant for part-time. It's just not going to happen.
We need like a bookkeeper.
Yeah.
But you got to remember, we're governmental accounting, and it's such a small field. I mean, people you're not out there. You have one governmental accountant or bookkeeper per municipality, and we don't even have one. So it's so limited to understand the chart of accounts, and it's just something you can't just go out there and just like you could get a normal accountant. You kind of got to understand the chart of accounts. And,
Well, I'd like to get back on this planner position. Chris, you chime in?
I was kind of initially excited about the position, and I will say that I did move this above the full-time zoning enforcement officer, because this discussion was basically going to pretty much dictate kind of how I would feel on the next item where we were going with the planner, because I know part of that job description was zoning enforcement. But I mean, really, if there's I guess sticking with the planner position, if the subcommittee recommends to hold off, then that's fine. I mean,
Sean, it's up to you. I mean, you tell us.
Well, I don't agree, but the recommendation is the majority of the committee does not want to move ahead at this time, and I'm not gonna say. I'm going to tell you guys what you need here. I'm going to ask that you let us know, because we know you're busy, but we're not.
Thank you for that.
But we want to help. But
no, I appreciate that.
And I'm speaking for myself. I assume everybody wants.
They
to help,
do, and I know this board stands behind us, and
right. And we've talked about that, about bringing forward other people to fill other positions as well. So it's just about trying to figure out.
So can we just put this on hold then? Let's go ahead and put this on hold for now.
That sounds good.
And we'll bring it up in the future. Okay.
Sure.
All right, thanks. Moving on now, the request for this full-time zoning enforcement officer and maintenance, it's a /maintenance, and I'll tell you why. We have probably, and I'm saying this from the heart, we probably have one of the best zoning officials that I've ever met. He's so good at his job, but not only that, if he doesn't have any zoning enforcement to do, he will go out and cut grass, he will go out and hang signs. He will literally do anything we ask of him. and he's a fantastic employee. And I would like for this board to hire him full-time. And right now, if we hired him full-time, and I think we're taking advantage of it myself, but if you hired him full-time on a salary right now with what we're paying him per hour, it would be $39,600 a year. And depending on what he did, that could be paid out of some of the water fund, the sewer fund. It could be paid out of the zoning fund. He does a lot of zoning, but he's so good at it. He gets things handled very quickly. He does not need health insurance. He's a retired, and he has health insurance for life. So that's kind of what I'm asking, is to get Mark Schneider full-time zoning and / maintenance as needed. And I'm putting it out there to see what you guys think of that.
John, I'd be in support of it. I just want to have a job description.
Yes, and I'll bring a job description in, but
Yeah.
the actual salary is extremely low.
I would agree.
So, yes, I can go ahead and bring a description in on what, I'll have him self-write it. He does everything.
Yeah. I mean, we have the job description probably.
He is way
for-
above that.
Well, I mean, we have the job description for probably two separate, but whatever you want him to do, to put into one, because
Yes.
then if someday he's not doing it anymore, then we'd want to be able to bring somebody that can do all of those, is willing to do all of those things. Because
Yeah,
I'll tell you, zoning ordinance enforcement, or zoning enforcement is one of the most thankless jobs on earth.
Yes.
And
It gets him down.
yeah, so I mean, to find someone who is, I mean, it's usually a retired police officer, because they're used to dealing with that kind of conflict. Because some people say, "Oh, hey, I didn't know," and other people say a lot worse things than that when you go out to their house. So, I mean, somebody trained in kind of conflict resolution like that, it just takes a special person. So,
He is that person, Sean,
Yeah.
and I'm telling you.
well, and he's not afraid to roll his sleeves up, it sounds like, and do
No,
whatever
he
needs
is
to be
not.
done, and that's always good to have on your team as well. So, I'm in support of it. I just asked for. a
So I
job
can bring
description.
back the description without a problem.
I'm in support of it. I was talking to him when the ladder truck was brought out, or the demonstration, and I spoke to him, and just to hear him describe some of the incidents that he had been dealing with and how he handled it, and it was non-confrontational, but he was still able to bring about some resolution. And I think that if we can get him, you know, we still have some issues with, I'm sure that need to be tidied up in the
Oh, yeah.
zoning enforcement ledger, and I think he's a great fit. So if we can bring him on and do additional work, I'm in favor of it.
Okay.
No issues here. I mean, I think I've brought up before too that there's just outstanding ones from 2011. So obviously we need more.
He's been going back,
close those all
and
out.
taking care of that. And some of the problems were created by the last guy. And some of these things are really not problems, but he's trying to figure out how to get them off of that and stay, I mean, without just taking it off, you know, and he's trying to resolve them.
And the full-time stay, that's more hours to
Yes.
whittle the list.
He'll get it whittled. He'll
We're
do
trying to
it.
cut more of our own grass because we're spending so much money on it as well. So that I look at that. We haven't gotten to that part of it yet. But the other part
That's
is that we've purchased lawn mowing equipment.
And
two
we're
different
using it.
pieces of lawn mowing equipment, and so we're able to do with this person and others do a lot with that to help. You know, year one, you're not going to save any money because you had to buy all the equipment.
Right.
But it's subsequent years we're really going to start.
You're going to see it. It's going
seeing
to come
quite a
back.
savings because we were spending quite a bit of money on grass cutting.
Yep, you're right. So that's what I'd like to ask, and if you'd like me to get a job description before you make a motion to do this, I have no problem with that, but we'll get that together. And
Yeah, if you're wanting to move ahead on it tonight,
Would like
if
to.
you're doing the job already, you're just asking to move him to full-time.
Yes.
I would just ask that a job description be finished at next month's meeting that really
Sure.
is sort of an amalgamation of what, we have these job descriptions out there, just something that we can attach to.
You know, like I say, he's got a job description, but he's so much over that, we'll have to make a hybrid.
Yeah, and I'm,
He really works full-time now. He's just not getting any of the benefit from it. 'Cause
yeah,
he's mowing grass, he's doing zoning 3 days a week, 'cause
right,
he's
and you're not,
mowing
you
now.
can't,
But you
Polar
can't,
signs.
have,
right,
you can't continue that either, because
no,
there's
it's really not
issues with-
fair
yeah.
to a person, really. It's just not,
Yeah.
so. He does anything we ask him to do.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly how you want this laid out, but I would, if you provide a job description just next month.
Yes.
All this stuff, I would support it tonight.
Okay.
But I mean, if you guys want to make the motion, just knowing what it is that you specifically want or need, or how this is all gonna, what fund it would.
Well, it'll be divided up, his hours will be
We'll have some
divided up.
it'll be a division of funds.
He keeps track of what he does
It's
for which
based on need?
department.
Yes.
Okay, so if you
He
just
does all.
identify those funds, then it's just basically overseen by you.
Yep.
And it's prorated, right?
So can I make a motion then to hire Mark Schneider as the full-time zoning enforcement officer / maintenance? And are we moving him up to 42,000? Is that, or are we approving just what he makes right now? Is that what it is?
We haven't talked about that.
Oh, no
but-
salary? Okay, sorry. Just moving him up for the hourly rate?
Yes, I
of
think we just start at this 39.6,
Okay,
and we can
39.6,
talk about
okay,
that
I
at the budget
apologize.
time.
Yep,
Sounds good.
for the
Okay.
And would he
39,600.
be eligible for the stipend?
Yes, he would be.
Good.
39.6.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll support that.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion and support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great, thank you guys. Moving on to the sanitary sewer master plan and resolution number 2018-11. This is the master plan that we've all read and looked at. And if you guys want to go through it page by page, I guess we can, but if we've all looked at it, and if there's any questions, we just need to address them to Leslie.
It might be. I
Look at
I like this stuff. I get so excited about it.
Chris read it 3 times.
He's been waiting.
Before the meeting, you read it 3 times. and
He's
he's
been
sad when it's
waiting.
done with.
Bated breath. He's been so excited.
No. I mean, did you have something to present?
Well,
or do you want me to give you
I
questions, or-
can do the presentation again if you would like, but we did spend a lot of time in it at the
Did,
workshop,
so-
so I'm prepared to answer any questions you have, or
That's why I'd like to move it to questions.
Okay. Then I'll go through it. That's fine. Some of this is just cleanup stuff, but I guess the Exhibit A document, we show the exclusion parcels that would never be obligated in service, like Tanglewood, because they have their own plant, Lion Oaks. The airport should be, I guess, it's color-coded excluded, but it's still within 2 different districts.
yes, it's excluded and it's mentioned in the report.
But we should adjust those district boundaries to not include
to
any
not
of the
include it
airport,
at all?
like we did with the other ones. The page 3, the assumptions, letter G, there was the high-density residential of 10 RUs per acre of buildable land, and that was kind of referenced throughout the report as residential within the DDA. I guess I just wanted to get clarification on that, because residential properties within the DDA extend pretty far outside the New Hudson area, which would include areas around Cobblestone subdivision as well. So I guess with the master plan, I think what the intent is that it should just include the residential areas in New Hudson, or I guess my general question is, what zoning district is it covering?
Oh, I have to look at the future land use map. Because this all came right from the zoning ordinance from my recollection, but I wrote that section quite a while ago.
Okay. I mean, it doesn't have to be answered tonight if we want to.
Yeah, I mean, and if, I could always just include here, maybe, yeah, it says, use the future land use map to determine the number of RUs per parcel. So if you want, I can expand on that in the zoning ordinance, so it's not like, this is not supposed to be used to establish any type of density.
Right.
And so I put that throughout the report, because it's really to be used as a tool to make sure we have capacity, not the other way around.
Exactly.
So-
Right, and I guess that's I was just trying to figure out where that assumption was being applied to,
It is.
and that's,
Tina helped me out here by finding it. It's in the core area, I believe. Mm-hmm.
Or the neighborhood section of the DD.
I think it's right in here.
High-density residential.
Yeah, the high-density residential in the core.
Like Robertson.
Like the Spring Meadow development, that area.
So I guess I have a question about Chris's question. Where it says I'm looking at the Downtown Development Authority map, where it extends all the way to Dixboro? Is that true?
That's pretty large.
Yeah.
The DDA.
Just shy of 4,000.
So when you're referencing your information,
It's the future land use map. At the title of that,
Okay.
under one, it references the future land use map.
okay,
So it's nothing else.
okay. I just wanted to make sure that I was trying to understand Chris's question.
Yes.
So, all right.
So it's the area that really surrounds Spring Meadows in the DDA that, and this was, I want to.
Southwest Ring Road.
Okay, Southwest Ring Road. And a little bit between Pontiac Trail and Grand River. There's a portion on the future land use map that allows for high-density residential, really in your downtown area where you would.
So the Spring Meadows area, that's what I thought the intent was.
Yes.
Okay.
It's also called the neighborhood district.
The neighborhood district.
So we have a core, an edge, and a neighborhood.
Right.
So what's the part that's all the way out to Dixboro? What's that called?
The DDA.
It's just the
captured
DDA
area,
boundary.
The boundary
Okay.
goes actually from Napier to Hillsborough.
Right.
It's just shy of 4,000.
It's one of the largest districts in the state.
It's like the second or third largest.
So Leslie, how many times did you reference that this was not to establish density?
I think 2 or 3, and then Carol also had a wonderful time reading this, making sure that it was covered enough times.
So can it be in a footnote? Can it be on the title page?
We've got it all over the place,
Just want to make sure.
And what I would like to do is use this as a tool, really ongoing. The calculations, I spent a lot of time setting those up to track them, and I don't want to wait 20 more years to look at this again. My plan is to update it, just like we do for tracking permits for the DEQ, and use it as that tool, and possibly even once a year, just do an update. So, but that would be my goal, to keep it as a live document that we reference often and use.
Okay. Well, I'll skip that one. On page 4, the recommended service to Lyon Township parcels known as reserve RDUs. In that section, I think I mentioned this at our work session on it, but there are 7. Oh, maybe I didn't mention this one. There are 7 parcels on Exhibit B that are between Grand River and I-96 that aren't shown in the reserve capacity, which are in the industrial district. I think one of them might be a property owned by DTE, like transmission, or ITC, might be transmission power lines, but the other ones I weren't sure about.
Do you know, it's between Grand River and the freeway, but what about the north-south roads?
They are, I guess, one's west of Napier. There's 2 west of Napier near Old Plank by Pump Station 5.1. Kind of northeast of 5.1.
There's a conservatory out there.
Okay. Just to the east of 5.1?
Yes.
That is the township wetland parcel.
Both of them?
The other one's the Michigan Conservancy.
Okay. That makes sense. And then there's this, and then just moving west of there along 96, there's 2 big parcels that one fronts 96, and the one immediately west of that. It's like at the end of a dead-end street. that's not labeled.
I think it's Trident. Those are vacant parcels.
Okay, but are those, I guess that my question is that it should be shaded as part of the reserve capacity.
Okay, these two right here.
Kennedy Industries, maybe?
One of them is right north of the project we just approved.
Yeah, it's right north of the
Yeah.
exotic automation.
Yeah, that's, is that Pratt Mill?
That's Pratt Miller,
Yeah.
and then
that
the
should be-
property east of there.
Okay, that needs to be on the, they're serviced too. So that should be Exhibit A as modified.
Okay. Do they own both of those parcels?
I think so. Yeah, they're right at the end of the cul-de-sac. I'll verify that though.
And then if you follow 96 west, there's another little rectangle or trapezoid there that's just not colored in, and I don't know if
That
that's
little thing? Okay.
just another piece that's floating out there.
That's adjacent, that's Henrob's property. So I don't know why that little sliver is, it looks almost like a separate parcel, but I will look at that too.
And then I think we discussed the cluster that's on Haas Road south of Grand River about having those as reserve capacity. And forgive me, but they're shown colored on Exhibit B, but not on A. So I'm not sure. I can't remember the discussion on that. I guess I don't recall why those were included. They just or I think it might be just default that in case there's a redevelopment there, that those would all be able to hook in.
Exactly, because they're, the reserve capacity was for industrial and commercial parcels that have not contributed to sewer extension or already connected, that to reserve that capacity, because that was really the intent of your sewer system when it was initially built, was to service your industrial corridor. So that's why it's reserved. It's just a little pocket of
Okay.
parcels that haven't connected.
Okay. And then top of page 5, the summary of overall discharge capacity. Those, the RDU numbers have increased from the draft version. Is that just a general update since
Yeah,
that
that
was
was,
from March?
Patty and I reviewed some of the parcels that were brought up during the workshop, so there was just a slight adjustment
Okay.
to the numbers.
Okay. That next paragraph, the gravity sewer capacity analysis, that last sentence in the paragraph, that's also a reference to the residential parcels in the DDA is high density residential. So those are actually the neighborhood district within the DDA. Neighborhood district. And then I know we discussed for segments A, B, and C about reverting back to the original role for the pump station district number 1. Do we, I guess I was, at the work session, I was asking about the documentation from the original role and if there's any information on why it changed. Just to know, the history on that. Because now we're looking at changing it back to the original role. So do we have a copy? I assume we have a copy of the original role. Why? And then why did it change? And then now we're changing it back.
Wait, on what?
For the, I guess it's under the segment A, B, and C. That we're showing, it's the second paragraph, about obligate, I think is it in this section? Yeah, the recommendation to adjust the pump station district to shifting the line between pump stations 4 and 1 on the Irwin parcels.
Yeah, and the two exhibits, A and B and C, show the adjustment in the pump station district?
Right.
Is that the question?
Well, no, it was do we have documentation from the original roll? But really, which I assume we do, to
Yes.
show the
Okay.
old. But my question was, why did it change from the original roll? And now I know we're recommending to change it back to the original. I guess, why was it changed in the first place? Do we have,
I don't know.
that was,
That was a mistake.
do we know why?
You're talking about the special assessment roll?
No, the master plan map before
Oh, yeah, that was.
it was changed, and
Yeah, we couldn't- we
it
didn't
didn't
know why.
include
We looked
the
at that. We
northern
didn't
section
understand
of
why it's-
Irwin in the
not-
district that they paid into. And so we've corrected that on this master plan update to,
Yeah, it was the sliver.
that's right, the
Yeah.
sliver.
We investigated that all the way back to figure out why that, we have no answer why that was.
We don't know why it changed
We
in the.
don't know. We think
No.
it must have got missed. But we went back to the original, the original parcels. Leslie and I looked at that. We went all the way back to anything we could find in the special
I mean, they
assessment
were
roll.
definitely in the roll,
Yeah, so
the
we have,
West
it's
Grand.
gotta be what the roll says.
the map was
So
wrong.
somehow a little sliver got,
Yeah, I don't
where
know
it shouldn't have
why.
been.
And it wasn't part of, it was a map change between 1998 and now. And so that's why I think it was just an inadvertent error, because I don't know why it moved.
Yeah, we can't find it.
I mean, I have copies of those old maps, but there's no background on why or anything. So I'm just making assumptions.
Yeah, we looked at that.
I guess, okay.
I
We
mean,
want
we-
that to flow to the north.
Well, we
too.
don't have an answer
Right.
for it. The map got, a little sliver got changed.
Yeah, the roll matched the original master plan map.
So we went back to the original.
Did any others go back to the original?
That was
No,
only one.
that was the only modification. Exhibit A is probably the best that shows
Right.
it, and I mentioned it in my email. I did make one adjustment since the workshop, that the parcels north of the airport, like, they would have been split where a third of them was in one district. I adjusted it. It's physically impossible to service them because there's an airport. So I made that adjustment since the workshop. That's the only adjustment I made. And I deleted the other one,
The other adjustments?
the southeast part of the township. I deleted that adjustment since the workshop. But that might be amended in the future if there's property negotiations.
We still left the tap parcel going south,
Yes,
which we discussed, because that's where it's been.
yes. In the original master plan map, it did have a third going towards the north, but they never paid into the West Grand River sewer. So you're not
Not the
obligated to
west
serve
or
them to the north.
Yes.
Segment G, so this is the discussion on the capacity in Pinehurst, that
Yes.
the Pinehurst subdivision is discharging to the wrong,
To the north.
to the north as opposed to what, the east?
Actually, it will discharge ultimately to the south along Griswold. What happened
Right.
with that is when this is all from recollection of like 12 years ago, so it might be a little fuzzy, but when Pinehurst was developed, it was known that that was going to be a temporary pump station at the time, because the only way to service them was to the north. And I believe there was a boundary commission issue with that, but that's where the details are fuzzy for me. Then when the Southwest Sanitary Sewer was proposed, it was proposed to actually go from Dolly all the way north to 10 Mile. But the cost of that SAD came in so high that there was a section, or at least during the process, that was deleted and decided like that will be constructed at some point in the future. And then Pinehurst would disconnect from the north and head to the south. So that's what I know about that one.
Well, I guess with the approved developments south of Douglas, the west part of Stoneleigh, which I know is not affiliated with Stoneleigh, we're very close to fixing that issue, I suppose, if that's something that would help relieve the capacity issues that we're going to have with Pinehurst going to the north. I guess you answered my original question, which was why was Pinehurst incorrectly, or why were they flowing to the north?
Wrong way.
So if that can be alleviated and we have sewer pretty darn close to it in the future, I don't know, maybe that's something that we need to.
Pinehurst was gonna be annexed to the city. And then they actually had, like Sean said, a referendum. So the city actually voted on not taking it into the city. And so we retained it. And I don't think we had a consent judgment on that.
I don't
It
know.
was something very odd, though.
I don't know, because that was right about when I started
long time
working for
ago.
the township.
Mhm.
So I don't remember the details. I remember, though, that they went to Boundary Commission.
Yep, and they went to the vote of the people of the city.
Oh, they did?
Yep, they
Okay.
actually had a vote. I've never seen that in the whole time I've been here, the one and only time. They actually voted. Yep. Bob might
Strange.
even remember that.
I think that's when the landowner wants to move it, right? And they
Wasn't that
pressure.
called the Phoenix Project?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
Yep, they voted on it, and they voted not to accept it.
That happened with Livonia too. With
It might be,
part of
it might have been
Northville.
because maybe they, I can't remember, it's such a long time ago, but I'm not sure why they didn't accept it, maybe because of the water and sewer. Maybe they would have had to run lines, maybe they didn't have the capacity then, but they voted it down, so
Interesting.
they stayed in the township.
Well, good for them. Gosh, it's a great move.
Their taxes are lower.
It is true.
10 mils cheaper.
Yeah. And they're going to get fantastic water soon.
Yeah.
Even more fantastic water, I should say.
Fabulously
That-
delicious.
Sorry. So the next one was segment J, which I think has been omitted in the report.
Ooh, I might have deleted Jay.
So that should be included. I skipped over segment I, sorry. I had a segment I1 that you reference I2, which is would be short if 100% of the connections were there. Does that include there were two proposed developments at the 9 and Chubb intersection? 9 Mile on the south side, and then I think it's the northeast corner of 9 Mile and Chubb. I think in your original assumptions, you said if somebody had put in at least a conceptual plan, I think they were included, but those were fairly new ones that have come across.
And that's if
And that's the ultimate, not,
every single
Right.
person in that district
Right.
connected.
yeah, it's not a current
No.
case
None
scenario.
of these are current concerns. There's really two sections of gravity sewer where there could be capacity concerns based on this. And one is a short segment along 11 Mile near Elko.
Mhm.
And the other one is in the Woodwind development.
Yes, and that was identified during the Legacy of Lyon
Yep.
review process.
Yep, exactly. But the tricky thing is with having a firm discharge capacity, at this point in time, unless that capacity was changed, it wouldn't service the entire township, so it's very hard to predict. It's very possible neither of these will really be a real issue in the future. It's just something to monitor and continue to track.
Good. The segment K, the last line, it's the Oak Ridge development, not Pine Ridge. For segment K.
Oh.
I know, we've got a lot of them, can be confusing. But segment L is the Legacy of Lyon development. which we just talked about. Exhibit E, which is, I think you said was the original master plan map. Do we have the final version of that one? The one that's in the
It's got some writing
packet
on it.
says preliminary, and it's got some hand calculations on
I
it.
can look and see through my records if I have a clean copy. And if this is adopted tonight, my plan is to provide books for the township to have on record. So that, right now, it's kind of hard to go through this, with all the calculations, there's like 70 pages or something. So this will be neater in paper form.
And then the next paragraph, pump stations 1 and 4. The original map for the West Grand River Sewer is you reference exhibit F. That's the incorrect exhibit. I don't think that was actually included unless you were looking at exhibit E, which is the
I probably,
original.
yeah, it should be.
And that's in the next paragraph as well. By the way, this is how I spent my Labor Day, just so you guys know. The next page, 8. We're almost done. There's only another page left.
I'll be here till next Labor Day.
Ouch. I'm sorry. I'm almost done.
Did I say
I
that
swear.
out loud?
I will
That's
call you
fine.
tomorrow on my drive to school at 6 o'clock, okay?
Him, right?
Yeah, Chris.
Been 5 hours. Should've
It
just sounded
has.
Leslie.
I could have.
You had a rough weekend.
It was. Right in the middle of the page, you applied it says a growth factor per pump station based on historical growth. Could we get that growth factor cited in the master plan, just for reference? That way, when we look at this again, we know what we're trying to do with the calculations. And then I know the next paragraph is basically just a sentence about the anticipation of the 4,700 feet of 20-inch parallel force main necessary and projected in 2023. This might be just a side discussion, but I guess, is that needed to serve the reserve capacity, or is that needed to serve the ultimate capacity?
It's needed to serve the capacity we anticipate at that time, based on using that same growth factor.
Okay.
What will happen is you'll start to have problems with your pump stations if you're increasing the amount of sewage and the parallel force mains are not built. You'll start to have problems with your pump stations being able
Correct.
to handle the flow. So we're trying to anticipate as accurately as possible when those need to be constructed. And one thing internally that we'll be talking about at our exciting sewer meetings are updating SCADA so we can have real-time flow data so we can model it.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure that what we have in here is, like, if somebody paid into the SAD, that they're going to get sewer. We don't want somebody who
Exactly.
didn't pay in to...
Be ahead of it because they take a while to design, permit, and build.
Exactly, yeah. So if somebody paid in and all of a sudden we say, no, sorry, you can't connect, I don't want that to happen. You know, they've been paying for 20 years, they should be able to tap right away, versus somebody that just is like, oh yeah, I'll just come in and grab some RUs even though I didn't.
Right, it's
Do it.
going to be critical to have some SCADA updates, I think, on the pump stations to model the flow accurately. If we model it based on just connections with assumed flow, you're gonna need to start building the first section of parallel force main in 2020, which means design needs to happen soon. So I'm trying to delay that, and the only way to delay it is to know accurate flow that those pumps handle.
Okay. And then I guess my last comment under the wastewater treatment plant. So we have the fourth sequencing batch reactor installed but not in operation.
The tank
And
is there.
The tank is there,
Mm-hmm.
it's not operating, but is this, I guess, again, with the whole, let's keep ahead of the curve, if we get this in operations, so right now we can basically treat 1.25 million gallons a day. If we get this fourth one on, it's 1.75 million gallons per day, and we're obligated to provide 2 million gallons per day based on the exhibits, and we're permitted to treat 3 million gallons per day. So I guess we need to at least think about providing enough treatment for the parcels that are obligated, which is roughly 2 million gallons per day, and I guess anything beyond that, I'm not as worried about.
Well, the DEQ has discussed this with me, but the flow you're actually getting right now is what, about 800,000
Yes.
a day? So
Not even close.
you are a long ways away
Yeah.
from even getting to your firm rated capacity. So I always recommend to wait as long as possible because they're very expensive to build.
Sure.
And the DEQ has made this argument several times with us as the community has grown. Like, well, you know, you're getting close. You should go spend, you know, $18 million. And we're like, yeah.
And
Why
the
don't we wait
people,
until we actually see the flow increase?
and the people who are in charge now are not gonna be in charge in a year, like Dennis. And his priority could be totally different, the next group of people.
Oh. I mean, the township definitely wants to be conservative to make sure you have enough time for those expansions, but you could easily be 10 years away from even
Yes.
reaching your firm rated and knowing you can outfit your fourth tank and delay it even longer. I really think, I'm very comfortable with your capacity. Actually, going through this exercise made me even more comfortable. The parallel force mains, I think, are going to be the first large expense, or the first coming, and some pump station upgrades, but I don't anticipate anything major at the plant for quite a while. And if the DEQ is insistent on it, they would also ask you to enter into a, what is those, are agreements called? They have a name for them. Basically, they'll make you sign an agreement that you'll do it at certain, you'll start designing at certain percent flow of capacity, and you'll start construction. And the townships entered into them before with the DEQ.
Okay.
We've also had those put off too. When we could prove that the flow wasn't at the capacity that they were requesting us to expand, we've done that multiple times. Yep, put it off till we finally hit, and then we had to expand. We just did that $5 million expansion. So, I agree with Leslie, we've been talking about that, but we're a long ways off from that. We need a lot more flow. So,
If it's all right with the board, can we delay this a month and get the changes done and do the resolution next month, if that's,
It's fine with me.
just so I can see it one more time, and I promise I won't take as long talking about it.
Well, it's good that you
My
do.
bad, I gave you a hard time. I'm sorry.
I think
Oh,
it's
it's-
good that you have the knowledge to go through that and actually ask some good questions. Are you finished, Chris?
Oh, I guess I'll make a motion to table until, do I have to say a date? I guess
Hey,
until.
Chris, can you wait 1 second? Does anyone else have any questions regarding any of this for Leslie? Okay, then go
Actually,
ahead.
I got a list,
Do
but
you?
I'll wait till next month.
Yeah, you can bring yours
Yeah, I'll just, yeah.
Well, I had
Chris,
to
you'll need
ask.
Sean, you'll need somebody to escort you to your car if you bring up something next month.
I was under the assumption
I
that
know that's
there would be
true.
no more comments, sorry.
Well, I had to ask. Okay, Chris, go
I'll
ahead.
make a motion to table the sanitary sewer master plan until the October meeting.
Support.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, table the next meeting. Moving on to the 2018 Headley maximum allowable millage request for Lyon Township. And Patty, you want to explain this?
yes, we're getting ready to start the budget, and I need to set all the rates for all the taxing entities that are under the township's umbrella. And we are limited by Headley, so I included that the 2018 Headley maximum allowable millage. That's what we're allowed to. We will have to have a hearing, but we'll do a truth in budgeting hearing when we go to approve the budget. So we'll have our workshops, and then when we go to approve it, Michelle will advertise the actual millage rates will support the budget. But in the meantime, I need to get, Oakland County likes to have these, Shannon Moore. She likes to have the millage rates kind of around September 15th. Plus, I need them to be somewhat approved so that I can help everybody prepare their budget numbers. So until I get somewhat of an approval from the board, I really can't provide that. I do have them all punched in. And then the only other thing is I wanted to let you know that this is going to be the last year to roll the fire debt. And I put a little memo down there that we asked for a mill. This has finally come to an end. We only have 2 payments left, one in November and the last one is in May. And we are done. And the 2 fire stations that the township has constructed will finally be ours. And I am asking to reduce that from 30 cents to 22 cents. That will give me enough money with what we already have in the bank, what will roll on everybody's tax bills, to pay the 2 bond payments, pay the audit. I think it's enough to pay any MTTs if they are still coming in, no Michigan tax tribunals or any reductions. I feel comfortable with it. And so that's actually my request. And once I get that, I can provide everybody with budgets. I know Mark's waiting, Tina's waiting, the chief's waiting, so.
So in summary, everything stays the same except for we save people a little bit of money, 0.08 mils
Yep,
on the
8
fire
cents.
debt,
8
and
cents.
then next year, 0.22.
Well, everything,
away.
right, but everything was rolled back. The Headley caught every millage entity, so but we also went up the cost of living, so, in your overall taxable value, the whole state went up.
Right.
So, but
Our millage
we'll be
rates went
rolling back.
down.
Our millage rates went down.
Yes, correct. Yes.
So you can just say tax cut, right?
Tax
Okay.
cut.
Yeah.
I have a
8 cents
question.
per $1,000 of value.
So in your memo, it says 0.30 cents
It
to
is.
0.22 cents? Is that
Yep,
30
so
cents?
30
Or is that
cents. No,
0.3?
No, 30 cents.
It's really the same thing.
0.30 cents.
0.3 is
If
0.3
it's dollar
mils is
sign
basically 30 cents.
0.30, then it's 30
And-
cents. But if it's 0.30 cents, word
Well-
cents, then it means it's less than 1 penny.
Correct.
So I just wanted to clarify.
Okay. It's
You can have that argument at Kroger. I've done that before when
Okay.
they.
No, I will not engage in
30
that.
cents.
Didn't you read the master plan?
So I just wanted to
Yeah.
Yes. Well,
clarify that it
that's how we
is.
put it in the taxes, so that's how I put it here. So it's 22 cents.
So taxes are
For
going down.
1,000.
That's good.
Yep, it
It'll go
is.
down more next year.
Yes. So, yes, if I could have a motion, see Shannon, she likes it by September 30th, but usually she starts bugging me by the 15th. Anyways, I would like to get the budgets out to everybody, so that they can, or their actual dollar amount, so that they can prepare their budgets for John.
Anybody want to make that motion?
What's the specific motion? You would like a motion to approve the tax rates as
As
presented?
2018 Headley maximum allowable millage, if you could, plus the 22 cents.
I will make the motion to approve the 2018 Headley maximum allowable millage, and also note that the fire debt will be reduced from 0.30 to 0.22
Thank you.
next year.
Support.
I don't want to say mils or cents, I'm just leaving it at 0.3, yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the consideration to adopt the Charter Township of Lyon Parks and Recreation Advisory Board bylaws.
I'll make a motion to approve the bylaws.
I'll support.
Okay, go ahead, and we have a speaker.
Okay. Sorry, really quick. I have 4 little things. Typographically, the section numbering is off.
Oh, 1, 2, 3.
So 12 should become 11, 13 should become 12. That one's easy.
9, 10. Oh, I see.
2
Yep.
questions
11.
kind of towards Carol of, do we need to do an MCL citation. If we do, I have those. And the wording in the membership section sets a quorum as being a majority of those members present. I think it should be seated or something, but so with those, I would ask that those changes be incorporated in the approval.
Seated members.
And then once that's done, I would like some guidance as to how you want to interpret this seating. Currently we have 5 members, if you want that to just continue, and if you want to have them slotted into the staggered terms or just however you want to handle it.
Yeah, I think the staggering is good.
I mean, we'll deal with this the same way we would with having, I mean, you make the appointments and then we confirm them, right, John? So you
Yes.
just decide how you
Yep.
want to do it and then,
Okay.
but yeah.
Staggered term. Okay.
But you'd want to reappoint and clean that all up? Is that your goal? Just to get,
I guess I'd have to talk to you about that. We'd have
Okay,
to
and
see
we
how
can-
that all's
you
going.
do that and then stagger their.
I guess as long as we have the understanding for right now, we'll keep it, I guess, as it is. And
How many
we'll
members do
talk
you
and-
have right now? You
5. So it would
Oh,
just
you only
be-
have 5 now?
Right, because we
Okay.
have some vacancies and the positions that we're removing
Okay.
are mainly the liaisons. So.
Got it.
So we're
Okay.
eliminating the liaisons.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, they're of course still welcome to attend and contribute and will be kept in the loop through reports, but
Okay, so he added some language in there.
Yep,
Are you
so
good
we
with
just-
that on
yep,
your
I got
motion?
that. Yep, I will correct the, section 12, 1 to 11, section 13, 1 to 12. And then you said a quorum shall be a majority of those seated members present.
or just eliminate the word present and replace
Oh,
with
okay, seated members,
'cause-
yep.
Yeah.
With a maximum of 3 members.
They have to be in
That is my motion.
Okay, is
It's
it,
been supported.
Okay.
support still good? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. There you go. All right.
Last one.
Moving on to the Township Building Department request to purchase BSNA software update. This is, we are way out in our building department for the BSNA software where we get no technical help.
We already got it, so
And, what's that?
we already got it, so we may as well support it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a pretty big upgrade. They're going quite a few versions. And the total was $15,040 plus they want $17.95 a year for the technical service.
Will that keep it up to date from here
That'll
on
bring
out
it
then?
right up to date.
But I mean, like, so the 15,000 and but the 1,700 a year gives,
Keeps it
so the
updated,
updates, keep,
yes.
so we won't fall behind.
No.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the request to purchase a BSNA software upgrade at a cost of $15,040 and enter into an agreement for ongoing services. Well, I guess at least for the next year, right? Because then it'll be in the budget for $1,705. And this will-
1705, yep.
This will come out of the building department fund.
We had to go to
I'll
the,
support, sorry. Go ahead.
sorry.
We have a motion
I
and
just wanted
support.
to
and
explain that.
Go ahead
we-
and,
In order for us to do the water billing, we had to improve the water, our utility billing to the .net, and that's what the building department is going to be doing too.
Sounds good.
So,
yeah, they need it badly.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
For a second.
Patty.
Patty.
I seconded. Sean, I seconded, and then Patty talked.
Yes.
Patty explained.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
At 10:18 PM.